So how delayed? I think it's like 20 seconds delayed. It just started over there. So it's always fun in the beginning, watching myself go. So I'm doing this from Linux now. Okay, so we have 4 minutes. I'm going to go get some coffee and looks like about 45 seconds delay. Oh yeah. I'm doing this from Linux now. Okay, so no. It's stuck in my head because you've been doing it when I was waking up in the morning. Come on, you coming in or what? No. Well, it must be spring. The cats just look at you when you open the door. What? Yeah, I was thinking going in. Who wants to open the door himself? I thought you were going to watch something with your poor sweet mom. Hello. According to me, I'm a minute early. You could hear me talking down there. It's like over here, it's like 45 seconds old. I have the YouTube page. Kind of curious how long it takes. So let's see, we do have a. Oh, this mic picks up a lot. I don't know, like 40 seconds, like I said. So anyway, I haven't talked to anybody. I'm pretty busy. It's hard to do this every week, really. Sometimes it's just like, slept in, took a long shower. I'm supposed to get to work. I did a little bit. There's only so much I could do at 4. But you know what? Consistency is important. And I do enjoy conversation. So on the other hand, I didn't prepare. I didn't talk to anybody about if anybody's going to come. I have put the link on the YouTube page, and that should work now. On the other hand, I've been thinking of a video that I wanted to make all week, and I had just been too busy. So yeah, I mentioned earlier when I was just setting up, I'll re-say this is all on Linux. So I've got a different webcam here. So it looks like the quality of it's pretty good, but it's also a little choppy. I don't know. Worth trying. It's great to be able to work on. This is the main machine I work on. And I think the view in this direction is better of the roof. So I kind of had an epiphany. See, the thing is, the camera's over here. It's so funny to look at the camera. It's like then you're looking at the audience. No, I'm looking at the little black dot. So, but anyway, guess what I could do? Well, when nobody's here, it doesn't matter. When somebody's here, it's like you got to look at the person, and so you end up whatever. Anyway, I had kind of an epiphany. So to me, a lot of my ideas have been converging, and I had this epiphany. And the epiphany was related to confusion. I am a big fan. You could say I have a philosophy of confusion. And I'm not afraid of getting confused. I enjoy getting confused and sorting it out. I think that's why I like the program. I think that this is the best way to learn things. I admitted also in one video where I was talking about this, I've talked about it many times over the years. I felt this way since I was in my teens. You know, that to learn something, you always have to walk through this cloud of confusion, basically. You have to be willing to confuse yourself. You might think you know something, or you might not feel confused because you just aren't thinking about that something. There might be an evolutionary advantage to having that approach. But if the goal was to learn about that thing, then you want to become confused, right? You don't want to forget what you already know. You want to learn enough more that you don't know that you become confused. And so the epiphany is kind of because, all right, we have this convergence of information theory and physics through quantum information theory. And there's an argument that it's not even something we're deducing, that just simply what we mean by information and computation is going on out there in the world, right? So let's say let's say I encoded a picture in some water. How could I do that? Well, I could freeze the water and imprint a form. Okay, and then I put that at the top of a waterfall, and it goes down the waterfall and gets broken up and floats off in little bits. That physical process can be thought of and is just as much an information transformation process. The picture at the top was data, went through a physical process, and it came out as data. I mean, basically going off a waterfall in that case would be sort of a randomizing transformation. Hey, hello, Matthew. Right? So there's this, I was just talking about my new theory of consciousness. What's up with you? Well, okay, I'll continue with this rap. I have a feeling people, won't know what to do with it. But anyway, so talking about confusion and how it's actually a useful thing. You know, not that you want to stay in a state of confusion, you get trapped in one, no, but getting confused and then sorting it out, and that it's a good way to learn. If you were to go to a new neighborhood and you really wanted to learn the neighborhood well as quickly as possible, you don't carefully make sure you never get lost. You just wander around the neighborhood, get lost, and finally you come around a corner, it's like, oh, I'm here again, and all of it starts to tie together. And then the epiphany is the sense of confusion is eyesight that can see entropy. Confusion is an eyesight for entropy in the quantum information definition. So in quantum information theory, entropy is information that you don't have. So the idea of entropy being about disorganization, no, it has to do with the inaccessibility of information. A high entropy system has a lot of information that's inherently difficult to discover that information, whereas like a low entropy system, let's say a crystal, I can know where all of the molecules are in a crystal just by looking at a few, because they follow a lattice pattern. And that organization, it's not really about what's fundamentally organized or disorganized. It's about what um, information you could get out, right? So something is organized if you could get information about it. If its state is changing so quickly that, let's say you got a complete state, and then 2 seconds later, the state you have is useless because it's all randomly jumping around, that would be a high entropy system. Or a low entropy system, you would take that state, and that state would tell you something, tell you more for a longer period of time. Right. So there's this idea that, so for example, entropy, of a gas, a hot gas, when you put a thermometer, let's say you have a chamber, it's got just a little tiny hole so you could slide in your thermometer. When you put that thermometer in there, you're cooling the gas, you're lowering its entropy. And you pull it out, and there's information recorded on your thermometer, the temperature that was in there, but it actually lowered the temperature in order to measure it. It took some of the energy out of that system in order to tell you how much energy was in there, right? And the information is actually in the energy that was measured. And it occurred to me that when we are feeling confused, what we're doing is we're putting a thermometer into some chaotic system. We're sensing that there's activity, that there's informational activity there. Okay, I got comments. I better look and see if people are saying, I can't get in there. No, this stupid Google tells me, you've got a Hangout going on. You want to join? Are you going to watch it? It's like, I'm in it right now. But anyway, yeah, so I think our sense of confusion is like eyesight that looks at entropy. And the longer you look at the entropy, you lower the entropy. And then this is a huge convergence because, okay, in physical systems, you can show that in a closed system, entropy should increase. But what is life? What are animals? Well, we're semi-closed systems, right? But we're not closed, but we know how to throw energy outside the semi-closed system and reduce entropy. Life is the thing that reduces entropy, it seems like. Now, it's not fundamentally, doesn't have to be that way. A refrigerator reduces entropy, but then again, could that happen by accident? Isn't it a product of life that we could invent a entropy reducing machine? Because that's what all living cells are. They defy this second law of thermodynamics in the same way as by walking around we defy the law of gravity. Of course, we're working within the law, but we're expending energy to have a result other than the default result. The other part of this convergence is that psychologically, I think this is a final step in, I've been thinking, what if the brain was a quantum computer? And I can go for years and years with these kind of what if things. And I like to write fiction, so I can have a what if, I'm into what if Hitler won World War II, or, what if the Russians got to the moon first, or whatever, what ifs of history, things that'll never be true. So, I can have things that I hold contingently, even for fictional reasons. But when I have a theory or something I think might be true, I spend a lot of time going, well, what if, what if it was? And I've gotten to the point now where I can't understand how the brain works unless it is a quantum computer. And this argument that, people just say that because quantum mechanics is strange, consciousness is strange. No. It's a lot more to it than that. It has to do with with the fact that quantum mechanics turns out to be about information processing in the physical world, which is what our brain is doing. So I think there's a lot more of an alignment than just like going to the edge of science to find out something that's at the edge of psychology, right? Though I also think that is a fair thing. Of course, you look at new science to explain phenomena that the old science hasn't explained yet. I mean, that's a given as well. But my point is there's a lot more to it than that. Now, one thing I've been thinking about, again, this is convergence, so let's switch over. Computing, I'm a software engineer, and I've been interested in quantum computing ever since I first heard about it, which is forever probably. And that is some message. So I've been thinking, well, how would you program these and what would the output be? And then part of this epiphany about confusion is I realized the output of a quantum computer would be an emotion, right? Because think about how if a quantum computers don't, so let's say we have the hypothetical password breaking of a quantum computer. They're supposed to be able to break a password. And basically, it could try all the passwords at once. And then sort of check them all at once. And the one that survives this checking process can be spit back out of the system. So you do all this checking of, like many, many things in this sort of multiverse quantum quantum coherence, and then you collapse it or whatever's going on, you read it out into regular information, you can solve the password. It's kind of like if you went up to a lock with no lock picking skills and you just jammed a paper clip in there and wiggle it around. There's a 1 in a million chance you might unlock the lock. And the quantum approach is kind of like, well, yeah, we just do that and we feel our way. We narrow our way down into click and it opens. And the thing is, though, so a quantum computer will be able to break passwords easy. However, it's going to spit back the password, and it's not always going to spit the right password back. Like 1% or 2% of the time, it's going to be the wrong password, right? You won't notice this because a regular computer will check, and if it's wrong, it'll try again. And with a 98% chance of getting it right, the idea that it would get it wrong, more than 3 times or something is almost impossible, right? But theoretically, it could keep getting wrong, but it just becomes very, very unlikely. And at any rate, you can check with a conventional computer if that password was correct or not. Double check it, and so you might have to do it again. It occurred to me this is a lot like emotions are. This is a lot like just getting a gut feeling. I have a gut feel. You gave me all this information. I'm the quantum computer, and my result is a gut feeling that this is the password. And likely it is. The gut feeling is justified. The gut feeling is the process of a computation. It's just that it's a quantum computation. And it occurred to me that this just makes a tremendous amount of sense, that emotions, that's where they come. That's why they have this gestalt. How is it that we size up a whole picture and then have to look at the details? When we go to school, we're taught, look at all the details, and complex things are built out of all these details. But how our brain works is we see, and then we look at the details somehow after we've seen the whole thing, the gestalt. That's how a quantum computer would work. It gets a vibe or all this emotional language reacting to quantum mechanics as though somehow there's some non-scientific aspect to it, even though it comes directly and purely. It's the purest, most abstract, purely physical theory. But a lot of the terminology brings us back to issues of observation and information and what is a computation versus what is a mechanical process, and is there any difference? And I think that there might be this fundamental relationship through the fact that we are quantum computers, and so this emotional processing we do, that is the quantum part. And that's why sometimes those 5% error rates can be a problem, because it doesn't just work automatically. It still has to be programmed. And so there's certain kinds of errors that we as a society over time have fallen into these traps of these patterns that you can only rectify with a sort of classical, logical, um, fully collapsed, non-intuitive process. Really, these two processes in a balanced person do not need to be at odds at all. It's a balance. You get the gist and you check it with our traditional idea of reasoning. You're doing a computation to get a big picture, and then you're doing a different computation to sanity check that big picture. You can't survive without the big picture. You'd be as stupid as 286. You need this big picture. And you can't survive without the analytics, like an animal, but luckily we have developed these analytics which allow us to process our emotions that come out of this quantum computer, our impressions of things, our gestaltish all at once. Here's what I think the password is. Guess this. These waves, we want to check those. We can get a leg up on evolution using rationality to sanity check our impressions, right? And improve what kind of computations are being performed. There's a way to program this quantum computer. There's a way we think and can create our own thoughts and guide our own thought processes, right? And improve the kind of impressions we get. So yeah, that's the theory. Nobody will understand that, but because it's this convergence of so many things that I know that I don't have any, nobody's really having any, not getting any buy-off. People, it just doesn't even necessarily register each one of these areas. So why would it register when they're all coming together? But I think probably the part that is that is clear enough to debate is that I'm committing to this idea that the brain is a quantum computer based on similarities of how it operates to how quantum computing processes operate. So it really doesn't matter how those take place. I mean, I'm very interested, but I think we already know there is quantum biology, first of all. And it doesn't matter, though, because there is chemistry. So, Gary, how you doing?
Tired.
Yeah, me too.
I was hoping somebody else. I was hoping somebody else would show up so they could just say you're crazy, but I wouldn't have to do it.
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't want to say.
There's 4 billion years of evolution. If there was a better way to get to the right answer, your brain would not be wasting 70 watts of electricity, of energy every minute you're alive. If there was a shortcut, if there was some quantum shortcut to the answer, your brain would be using it because it would be a huge evolutionary advantage to getting answers without doing all this processing. So I'm just saying that the very idea of a quantum computer in the truest sense of the word quantum computer, not a micro computer, not a nano computer, but some sort of quantum computer that somehow gets to the wormholes its way to the right answer. Mm-hmm. All right, I mean, that's theoretically based on so many assumptions and presumptions about what quantum is really about. That you have to accept entanglement, you have to accept a whole pile of string theory-esque premises. So I'm just saying, talking about like it's a real thing, like there really is a quantum computer, like someday there actually will be a quantum computer. No. You're not close.
Hi, Pyro.
Hey, Justin. How's it going?
I was just wondering whether Gary was doing like me. He was in a room for like 25 minutes, and I thought, I'll sit here and wait. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Funny.
But I do have a couple of questions for you. say for example.
Hold on just a sec. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, are we? Anna Cantabard, it's. Are you set up proper on the computer, or are you on the hand again?
I've muted you because it was really noisy, so you might have to unmute yourself, but you're not like muted. I just here. Okay,
Hang on.
there you go.
Okay, I'll get my headset.
Okay.
Anyhow.
Well, it's mostly just when he's moving the phone. I mean, the rest of the time, but the headset will help, I think. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
You know how I think they're called dendrites, which extend from neurons to connect to other neurons.
Right. Yeah.
If it was found that somebody said, oh, it's most efficiently finding the connection by a quantum method, would you feel that you've somehow been, what's the word, validated? Oh, that's not the word I'm looking for, but
yeah, I think that's going to keep happening.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. Validated is a fine word. Yes, I would, and I think that's going to keep happening. Like 4 years ago, I mentioned when they found the quantum stuff for photosynthesis, which they just keep piling it on. I mean, with obviously chemical processes.
Exactly. That was my reference point, the photosynthesis. So, but to me, your appeals to specialness going on in the brain with such that particular aspect of quantum mechanics, let's say, in connecting dendrites, wouldn't be instrumental to any kind of fancy processing. Is the point I would make.
Well, why would you say I'm trying to make it special? I mean, there's quantum mechanics. It's used in the brain just like there's, chemical energy in muscles. It's just, it's not making it special necessarily. I don't really understand that part of it. Why?
I mean, accepting quantum mechanics at face value, of course quantum mechanics goes on in the brain.
Yeah.
Right?
But is it utilized? Yeah,
I won't deny that. But it's this idea of a quantum computability in the brain is without justification in my mind.
Right. I see various reasons trying to explain what we see, that there is some justification. But the other thing is that there is no magical powers. What you see is what you get. I mean, the magic, if it was magic, it's that bags of salt are walking, as I've said before, are walking around. That's all the magic. What more? You know what I mean? So there's nothing like, and quantum computers are funny. Part of me deciding I just believe this non-contingently now is that, quantum computers are far from perfect. These amazing things they can do, like break passwords, they're not right all the time. They basically make guesses, right? And you have to double check the guess with the regular computer, rerun the process. So it's like they're flawed, and they're flawed a lot like our emotions are. You do get an emotional gist of an unsafe situation and stuff, and there can be validity, and then you analyze it to see if there was validity, and a lot of time there is, and a lot of time there's something weak, and that's what you would have to do with quantum computers.
But isn't that the whole point? Isn't that the whole point? Is if you really did the statistical analysis and you found out what works better, thinking before acting or acting, I think you'd find that most of the tragedies that happen to the human race happen because of people with too little thought, not too much thought. So it is this first impression, everything's okay, or this sloppy perception of how the right way to do something is. And it's not, life isn't, some of the most important things aren't intuitive, they aren't simple, they are complex, okay? So it's like there's a starving man and you feed him. That's not necessarily the logical thing to do, because the starving man make a baby out of the donut you just gave him.
Well, that's okay, yeah. But anyway, well, you lost me at the end there. But basically, I mean, I agree. The thing is,
then you have two starving people.
No, I understand. You didn't lose me. I didn't get confusing. Yeah, no, right.
Three starving people. Then you have four starving people. You don't understand? Unsustainability is created by emotional thinking. Has created the very pollution of this planet we exist in right now. Is people
what I'm saying is,
everything's okay, and everything isn't okay. It's unsustainable rubbish.
But okay, but back to what all I'm saying, I think if anything, it demystifies this power of quantum computing, because what I'm saying is the emotional reasoning that we see in mammals, the irrational reasoning that somehow all these animals use and survive, even though it's irrational, I think that's the quantum computing. I think
Practice,
that's the quantum.
practice, practice,
I want to finish.
Hero.
I'm just saying that I'm thinking that is the quantum computing part. The emotional reasoning is the quantum computing part. So I'm not saying the quantum computing part is the good part. I believe in rationally analyzing our emotions.
I'm just saying our
with
emotions.
classical logic. So
For many organisms, their emotional responses are built out of maturation or practice. So it's not like it's a shortcut. It is actually a long cut where you actually have to create muscle memory, and you have to create those emotional instincts. And those emotional instincts are not simple instincts. They're very complicated instincts, because it's like a violinist or something having the right amount of touch and the right amount of pressure. These are things learned through practice and extensive processing, not simple processing.
right, but that's the whole weird thing, is the fact that this stupid kind of thinking, the non-rational, emotional kind, has all of these subtleties and very complex data sets that are all being processed at once. It only does so well, but how does it do it at all? And the answer, it seems to me, is that, well, you could do that kind of thing with the quantum computational process, and you incorporate all kinds of errors, and it means that your answers that you come up with can be totally wrong. So there's nothing magical about the quantum computer.
Let's say we
It's
applied this to elephants. Is your theory that you could create a mature elephant in half the time or something if you applied quantum strangulation or something? I mean, I just don't see how you can apply. The fact that it takes so very long to learn is, in my opinion, evidence of exactly the opposite, that there is no shortcut. They actually have to do the processing. You have to
Well, I don't think it is a shortcut. I don't know why you guys are saying that.
You have to get past these probabilistic outcomes to be able to find the real truth of a circumstance. You can't go based on one example. You have to go based on 10 examples, that kind of thing. There's all the evidence points to you have to be more thorough to get it right, not more shortcut quantum-y.
I don't see why. Somebody could maybe explain that, why that sounds to you like a shortcut. I don't see why. It's just a process.
Well, somebody you should explain how exactly your quantum theory of neural function actually expedites the process of us doing processing. How is quantum making me think faster or better?
I'm saying I think it's the emotional processing. So it's not faster or better. It's the stupid part. It's whatever. It depends what you think about emotional processing. I'm saying the gestalty nature of emotional processing.
Well, name an emotional process. I'm 55 years old, and I'm still fooled by a woman with pretty eyes. So I mean my emotional processing, I've learned absolutely nothing. I will fall in the same quicksand over and over and over. Okay, put a vagina on it, and I will fall in that quicksand forever. Apparently, so apparently I can't do any emotional learning.
Well, I'm not saying you could learn or not learn. I'm saying that process is, I think, a quantum process, and the reason is because it takes this complex data set and gives you this feeling about it.
All right, fine. All right, I think it's all made out of diamonds.
But what you don't get is
it's all made out of diamonds that fell out of a unicorn's ass. So there, you have your theory, I have my theory. I think both of those theories are absolute crap.
What you don't get is that quantum states, they aren't absolutely correct. They don't go from correct to correct to correct. They have this probability and error. So when a quantum computer spits out an answer, the answer is not verified. You have to verify the answer. A regular computer verifies its answer as it builds it.
There's a difference
I'm
between
explaining
quanta in the nanotechnology sense and quanta in the wormhole sense. And I'm just saying there's absolutely no verification of the existence of any faster than the speed of light communication or any entanglement. All of that stuff is still woo, And you can talk it all you want. I'm just saying it's still woo.
Well, no, that's
Here's,
ridiculous from
here's
my
the
point
thing.
of view. We do assume those things happen because they're
Well,
proved.
okay, we do assume. I'm just saying, I don't know who the we is that do assume, except the reckless who don't want to really think about it
Okay,
hard. Okay.
Justin, did you have
I
something?
said, here's the thing, Pyro. It seems like the processing is done through connections and dendritic
Hmm.
connections. Now, quantum processing sort of doesn't need connections because it has entangled sort of magical
No, no,
connection.
no, no. No, it needs connections. Like these DQ people that are building this one, this quantum computer now that is,
That
not really a
DQ
full.
shit.
Right. So it's all about. It definitely, the problem with it is they don't have entangled bits, because to have entangled bits, the connections are required to be very special. So the neural gap junction kind of connections, these waveguide type of connections you see in neural systems, they exactly, very likely, they're waveguides. They're probably guiding waves throughout the neural system.
Well, I would argue that for as much as I am impressed by the human brain, I would say you mentioned the 286 computer before. I would almost rather people were run by 286 computers because I think the processing would be more reliable. I mean, the lunar module that landed on the moon that had less technology than a greeting card playing music, in my opinion, was probably smarter than human intuition in
Yeah.
terms of making decisions that are going to be in the long term beneficial effect of the human race. Look what we haven't done. We've created idiotic pop culture. Our culture is laced with nonsense and rubbish. We don't even admire people that do admirable things. We instead glorify people who do non exceptional things. And preposterous, stupid thing. The man who puts the ball in the basketball hoop is the biggest hero, right? We're going to pay $100 million to watch two idiots punch each other's face in, right? Didn't they have that last night? $100 million payday for two morons to hit each other in the face.
180, wasn't it, for the Mayweather, win or lose?
Yeah, well, see, to me, this epiphany is kind of, if me, it takes the luster off of quantum computing. I'm very excited to see that happen, and yes, I do think we are for sure going to see that happen. But to me, this takes the luster off. The point is, we already had the quantum computer. The kind of stuff it gives us is emotional reasoning. You can write a great play. You could be Shakespeare. There's all kinds of wonderful stuff it can do. But we, as atheists and whatnot, we also know that kind of reasoning goes really wrong, right? So it takes the luster off of the need for a quantum
But
computer
emotions
and
aren't
puts it back
reasoning.
on
Emotions
regular
are
logic.
compulsions and states of pressure. They're not reasoning. They're states of motivation. We reason ourselves to create emotions. I can
But you
use my
don't think quantum
reasoning.
mechanics
I
is
can
very
use my
reasonable?
reasoning to create a perception right now of a Tyrannosaurus eating some other animal. So I've used my reasoning to create a metaphor or a picture, and now I will emotionally react. I will not emotionally reason. I will just
Yeah.
emotionally react.
Right, but that's how you think quantum mechanics is to begin with, right? It's not reasonable.
Well, I'm just saying. You're calling it a reasoning mechanism, and I'm
Yeah, but
saying
those are just terms.
emotions are, by their definition, in my opinion, not reasonable. They're compulsions that are
Yeah.
programmed, and you can change the way they react by feeding them. You can feed your emotions symbols and ideas and concepts that will provoke them. You'll stimulate them. You can stimulate emotions, but they're
Yeah.
not a reasoning faculty.
Well, I'd be willing to call it something else. I mean, basically, there's this quantum computation, and the word computation is kind of wrong because it comes from this idea of our rational reasoning where something can actually follow from one step to another in a very concrete way. Whereas quantum computation, it's more, sloshing around. It comes out, it spits out errors as well as, it is fundamentally different from this step-by-step sequencing that we think of in this rational model, but it's still a kind of processing, okay? And I think that it matches this weird processing we experience with our emotions.
All right, well, I'm just saying I think you're talking way past the established science, and I would say if quantum had any value, it would be maybe quantum encryption makes some sense, because then you're relying on some Heisenberg principle where you can't violate a photon, and therefore you can tell whether its labia is intact or whatever. You can tell whether it's a virgin.
I will tell you one thing too. A lot of the magic that they promise, even like that cracking password stuff, a lot of that, I've been reading some papers where, no, when you get into it, the problem is there's all kinds of things that can be done in that coherent quantum space, but reading the information back out into the real world and winnowing it down to some sort of correct answer is complex, is inherently complex. So there's a lot of the things that in principle they could do, but really none of the, any magical connections with no connections, none of that stuff's going to work. It is limited. We're going to get tricks like encryption out of it. I mean, yeah.
Are we saying that our emotions serve a purpose here? I'm just curious.
I think so.
No, I'm arguing that their emotions are the mechanism that biology came about to provoke behavior in organisms that had complex brains. So it used as a motivation.
Going somewhere is what you're saying. Biology has a purpose.
No, I'm saying I'm not applying the word purpose to it. I'm saying it has a function in the sense that the DNA is a survival engine, and it's conducive to survival to have.
What matters then? You're saying the will to life is what does it. I disagree.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that. Quite obviously, I wouldn't use words to, like, the will to life to describe a mechanism that compels somebody to turn a light switch on and off or something. I'm saying that's not a will to life. It's a will to do.
I'm trying to find out what the purpose is. You're saying our emotions have purpose. What's the purpose?
I'm not saying they have a purpose. I'm saying they have a function.
Okay, what's the function?
Okay, there's a different word, okay? It has a biological evolutionary function. Every part of our brain has that, or it wouldn't exist. So yes, quite obviously it has a function to the survival of organisms. Like all tools, it's functional, like a shark's teeth.
A tool is created something for a purpose. We are not created by something for a purpose.
There's no God that created us or designed us with anything in mind beyond evolution. Designed us to be survival machine. We're a variety of survival machine. Funguses are survival machines. Tyrannosauruses were survival machines. We are survival machines.
No, we're not.
Okay, says you.
You understand evolution. Do you accept evolution, Anna Cantabard?
Yes, I do. But evolution is a description. It's a process.
Would you accept emotion? Would you accept emotions are a device which has been selected for through an evolution process?
No, selected for anything.
Well, do you believe there's natural selection? Do you believe the term natural selection is a rational and reasonable description of the process of evolution over time?
Nothing is being selected. Natural selection is a misnomer.
All right, well, that's a bold statement. I'm just saying that goes against what most people who have studied evolution would conclude. So that's what you call an extraordinary claim that probably needs some sort of explanation. Like you're going to say there's no processing over 4 billion years of formation of us into machines that are more and more cohesively designed by the process. The process cohesively creates more sophisticated weapons and tools to maximize exploitation of environments.
It doesn't do anything.
Tomorrow, and I found a way to be 100% efficient in processing sunlight, I'm going to be more successful.
What's successful?
Survive.
Live longer?
Molecule goes from present
to itself. Survival is useless in and of itself, and I'm not going to live to see the future.
It's a DNA molecule we're talking about. That's what evolution means. So when Hasadeh asked you, do you believe in evolution, there's certain concepts in that process that are, by definition, part of evolution. So you're really saying you disagree with the commonly known, commonly understood definition of evolution. You don't accept the common definition. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying if you're going to make the statement, you have to explain how evolution doesn't, over a 4 billion year process, go from a little piece of green slime to a very complex organism with billions of neurons.
Is a little green piece of slime any worse off than I am? No, he's not. There's no advantage that I have that he doesn't have. He's the best bit of green slime he can be. I'm the best human being.
It's not, the argument
no
contest. The argument
has no
contest
no
by the very contest is stupid. Okay, it's chase a pink balloon. So yes, anybody who catches the balloon is successful, but quite obviously, the point is you can't have the more complex organisms without time. So if you don't have time, you don't have their existence. They don't exist.
But you're saying, though, that there's some sort of progression from one to the other. I'm saying there isn't.
I'm saying that, yes, the progression is the same progression that creates a stalagmite, okay? If you don't give it time, there's no stalagmite. So without time, there's no stalagmite.
Okay, I can say that water dripping down with minerals in it down a thing creates a stalagmite. I can't say that water drips down in order to create a stalagmite.
And who's saying that? Again, all I'm arguing is that the function of evolution is the progression of a DNA molecule through time. So it's the molecule that changes. The organisms are just the demonstration. They're just the way you test the molecule. Okay, we're not the thing evolving. The molecule is evolving.
I would say the molecule is evolving because it in of itself, it's just existing as what it is. I don't think that there's any point to evolution. Just because I say I think
that there's a point, it's just that as the environment changes, organisms have to adapt to those changes, and through the process of that adaptation, they create new tools.
Why do they have to adapt to that? They don't have to adapt to that.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying that you can have your whatever thing here. I'm just saying that for me, evolution is this functional process. It creates tools, and the most interesting tool evolution ever created, the most interesting tool is the sentient brain.
I hope I muted myself.
Well, interest in and of itself
I did it.
Conjured up by the sentient brain.
Stop shouting, Pyro.
Evolution happens. Evolution has taken place.
Well, I'm just saying, you put the sentient brain in the same category as the great white shark's tooth. They're just happenings. They're not. You don't make comparisons between them. The tooth is just as cool or interesting as the sentient brain. The sentient brain isn't in any way completely different or outstanding in any functional property way. There's no property of the sentient brain that makes it any more distinguishable from the pointy, sharp tooth of the great white shark.
None whatsoever. I will say, though, is we don't know.
That's a fundamental disagreement, right?
Let Holiday get in there.
I have teeth and I have a brain, and I can certainly tell the difference between my teeth and my brain.
I can tell the difference.
Well, I'm just saying it's the difference that's as big as the entire universe. The universe is the difference is as big as a grain of sand and a nebula. But go ahead, Justin.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The question is to Anna Canterbard. You accept the story. You said there's no progression, but you accept hopefully the story of evolution that the DNA molecule splits and occasionally has errors. That is what you would call mutations. And if that mutation is favorable, let's say for social cohesion, and that gives you an added empathy effect in your brain, then that emotion, as in a very loose sense, given it the purpose of, or the ability, should I say, forget the purpose, that particular mutation can then survive better where cooperative behavior is favorable.
Okay, maybe it can. Don't think that it's mutating in order to survive. There's a difference. There's no function of evolution.
Right. But the consequence, the only way you can, have a lasting mutation is that you must survive to procreate. So you must gain that status symbol. You must acquire that. My DNA will not go into the future, okay? I have not left any seed behind. My DNA fails. It will never be represented in any future organism. So any attribute that I might have that would be an improvement wouldn't get passed on to the future. So there would be no change. in any direction that my identity might have changed.
What I'm saying is, we don't evolve in order for anything to happen. Evolution is
I
what is
know
already.
that's not the issue. That really isn't the issue. I have no disagreement with you that there's absolutely no function to our existence. My only argument is like if you look at it as a chessboard, my only argument is, if I can just finish real quick, it's only a minute's worth. My only argument is like the static, stupid chessboard. The only thing I'm saying is these things now have brains that can feel, and that's all the difference. Okay, the difference between something that's a potato or something that's a rock or something that's a stalagmite, and the difference between a game that now matters is the fact that these little pieces now have sentient brains in them, and they go ouch, and now it's a real game. If they didn't go ouch, I would agree with you 100%. If there was no sentience, I would agree with you 100%. Who could possibly contrive a reason to give a damn? It doesn't matter. It has no function. It's absolutely meaningless. There's no point in even talking about it. The only thing that makes it worth talking about is the fact that sentient brains are involved.
And I would even say that there's an assumption built into that sentience comes from brains, that consciousness comes from brains. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't know.
Well, how do we do that? How do we not know? Okay, that's another extraordinary claim that I'm not saying you're not entitled to have it, but that's essentially like Piro talking his quantum stuff and me saying it's all made out of unicorn shitted diamonds. I'm saying if you're going to make that kind of claim, you have to bring some kind of evidence, some reason to believe it, because I haven't heard any reason.
Well, let's just look at life differently. Why don't we just step back and think of different ways to look at life?
Every bit of evidence. Do you have one counter piece of evidence to put on the table to give me an example of how something without a brain was conscious?
Show me some consciousness. Show me.
I'll show you it in its function. It's right here, functioning right now.
Okay, I'll do a little thought experiment or just a rhetorical question, and I'll shut up. Let's say that we create AI somehow. How would we verify if we have? By its testimony.
No, you could.
By its testimony, it's the only way we could verify it. It would have to say,
the same way that I know you're conscious.
I get you. I know what a feeling is. I know what suck is. I get you. Bad exists inside my brain too. I know bad. I've tasted bad. Bad sucks ass. That would be the only way we could verify it. It would have to testify to its existence.
I can get a computer to say all kinds of stuff.
Or not testify. Testify is good enough.
I feel, therefore I am.
Well, let me say, on kind of odd. When we invented the microscope, and they noted some of the little specks, all the little specks in the water are moving around, and they could tell which ones were alive by looking at their conscious behavior. That's what they were looking for.
Oh, please, Piro, don't confuse me.
Yeah, that's exactly what they looked for. How did they know it was alive?
We're talking about the brain, okay? We're talking about the brain. 100 billion neurons.
We're talking about life.
We're talking about all. No. I might as well just cut my head off like it's a wart. Let's just all cut our heads off.
I'm talking about all.
It's superfluous.
I'm talking about all processing, all information processing of all life. That's what I'm talking about. And I think that is the scope of the conversation. If you want to talk just about humans, then you're not going to be talking about how brains work, because humans are not the only ones with brains.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, brains, there's no evidence that anything without a brain has ever been conscious, ever. No evidence, zero evidence.
Well, there's not really evidence that brains are conscious in that sense either. I mean, the evidence is the behavior.
I'm telling you. The evidence is in my testimony, and every time a scientist has poked the brain with a probe, every time a human being has been in a car accident, every time a human being has been born retarded.
Okay, don't go on and on. Answer my question. How did they tell?
This thing matters.
When they looked through a microscope and they still couldn't see the internal parts of that, they just saw the behavior of this speck, and they could tell that it was alive. How did they tell? What tests they do?
It's not about alive. Again, it's not about alive. It's about sentence. You can't follow the conversation. We sort of got to a premise that maybe is agreeable. The game is stupid until you introduce sentience. So if you're telling me the parameciums have a sentient consciousness, I'm saying that is another extraordinary claim. Can't we just stick with mammals or something? I mean, this whole thing just goes screwy when I have to put mammals in the same category as freaking glasses of water. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, what I'm saying is we don't know what consciousness is. Consciousness can analyze itself, but it cannot detect consciousness in something else. I can observe what something else does. I can hear what people say. I don't know whether or not that thing or
Why
that
do you
person.
say, but you're just denying that? No, but it sounds to me like it can determine what else is conscious, and then you're going, but I don't really know, because you're having some criteria. You did figure out what was conscious. We looked we can find out what's alive, we can find out what's conscious, we can find out what has emotions. We can find out those things.
Hold on.
You're
Life
saying I can't verify it.
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
Because you have to verify it. We're just saying if you figured it out.
Hold on.
Nobody-
There's actually a principle in computing that verifies what artificial intelligence is. If you can convince a human being when you're talking to a computer that it's not actually a human being, well, it's not a computer.
Right, so it can lie. Yes,
Yeah,
lying
yeah,
is proof.
that's all you need.
That's a great example of proving consciousness. Sorry, you're not going to prove.
No, you're not listening to me. There's a principle. We're talking about artificial
It's
intelligence.
not
There's
a principle of any
He
kind, so you can say stuff like that, but there's no such principle.
Yet
Well,
he
it's
is.
the Turing test he's talking about. It's
Yeah.
Right,
not
it has
the only
absolutely
way.
nothing to do. Artificial intelligence has nothing to do with artificial consciousness.
Nobody said
Christmas.
artificial intelligence. That's why I brought it up. You can convince human beings that you're talking to another human, and it doesn't need a consciousness, but they don't know that.
Sentience.
You've been
We're talking about feelings, artificial feelings.
Let's say that we are talking about artificial feelings. How would we know that we've created that?
I just pointed that out, that the only way you can even, I've made this in arguments, right? If I was conscious and I came against an intelligence that never experienced a feeling, I would have no way of explaining a conscious feeling, because there's nothing in the universe like it. So I can't compare, like an apple, I can compare it to an orange, I can compare it to a kumquat, I can compare it to a lot of stuff. I can't compare consciousness to anything else in the universe. It is unique, okay, and it cannot be described. There is no way you can know it without feeling it, okay? And once you do feel it, then you do know it.
So, Anna Canterbury, you think that there's some other place for consciousness other than the brain? Is that right?
No. What I'm saying is we don't know what consciousness is or where it comes from or where it goes.
Right. Well, you cast. All I would say is you did cast doubt about its residence in the brain, right? So I personally hate people playing devil's advocates when we all can agree on something. So if we can all agree that consciousness is located in the brain, I'd rather progress on that front than.
Well, why do we have to do that? Can't we just say it's located in the body, and we do know something about what it takes for it to?
I can't.
We can do it, but I'd like to know where people stand.
The brain
I
is in
want
the
to
body,
know where
so.
people stand, at least. And then I know how to address myself to different people.
Yeah,
I
well,
will say,
I'm saying
I'll
let's just say the body, because the brain stretches its little
But we
dendrite
already
throughout
know
the
you
body.
can cut your body to pieces and you're still conscious. I can break your spinal cord, I can cut your legs and arms off, I can probably replace most of your organs with synthetic ones, and you're still going to be conscious as hell. So yeah, okay, you have to have maybe we'll connect a few of your little gadnoids to your brain, but frankly, it's a brain function. It isn't a body function. Someday they're going to have a head. They're going to have a head that's alive, okay, through a perfectly mechanical process, and the brain will still be perfectly conscious.
Well,
it's all happening from the neck up, all right. And I think it's fantasy to start talking about anything below there being fundamentally significant. It's chemicals below there. It's
there's more brain neurons in your
it
stomach
doesn't matter.
area.
They're not thinking. I mean, this is just, they're not
Then
making
a mouse
consciousness. Okay, you really believe it then, Piro? You really believe that in the future, with technology...
Yeah, what?
You muted him.
Yeah, I know. I'm not... This is
Oh.
ridiculous.
Have I hijacked this by accident? I didn't mean to.
I don't think so.
No, it's fine.
But I had something for you. You did not answer.
Anybody who believes the brain is either somewhere else or in the body, that conventional science points to it's not. The famous cases of Phineas Gage, of split brain experiments, of sleep analysis, of purposely, of damaged brain parts, everything points
Lobotomies, for Christ's sake.
It points to the neural system.
No, it points to the identity system. Your entire identity is made out of that stuff. That stuff holds your memories. It holds every bit of what you do. Emotionally, I can destroy you emotionally. I can destroy you intellectually by just wiping out with a little stick. I can just poke out a little bit of it. I can just blow up or burn a little bit with a probe, and I destroy your existence piece by piece as a conscious entity. I annihilate your consciousness, not by jabbing you in the kneecap, but by jabbing you in neurons in your brain.
Well, okay, anyway, Anakanavad, you did not answer my question. You keep saying, well, how would we tell? I asked you, how did we tell those little creatures were alive? And I'm saying that's the same way we'll tell if we create one.
Okay, want me to answer that now?
Well, right, yeah, let me just say by analogy, because let's say we're not talking about creating a computer, let's say we're talking about creating artificial life, and then we want to say, well, is it really, is it a real life, or does it just look like life? We would use the same tests that we use to see if things we didn't create are alive.
What's the point of even changing the subject? Are we talking about artificial intelligence, artificial consciousness, or artificial life? Because fundamentally, there are three different questions that are entirely different, not a little bit different, entirely different.
What I would say is we can look down to a Petri dish and see these little things moving around in there, apparently autonomously, and we can say they meet all the criteria that we attach to the phenomenon we have called life. Therefore, they are life. We don't know what life actually is. We don't have
But
did we misidentify? Did we ever
DNA
misidentify?
molecule, okay? You have to have a DNA molecule to be a living thing.
Pyro asked me something.
As far as we're aware, we do, but that still doesn't mean it's the truth.
Identified, but that's because we have defined our terms. Life itself is a category that we created. We can say that this thing meets...
Granted, and that's exactly my argument, okay, that we are fundamentally different than parameciums. We are colonies of living things that are sentient. It's like the ant hive being sentient. Okay, yeah. We're made of elements of living things. We're not the living thing. We're the collection of living things, billions of living things. So we are on a scale different, entirely different. We're not even life forms in any real sense of the word, because we don't carry DNA. We carry a sperm cell for the collective organism of an arrangement of a colony of living things. We're a colony of living things. A colony is different than a living thing.
We are like Noah's Ark. We're like the Noah's Ark.
Are you saying there is no real, that like the distinction is just that we've made between living and non-living is just arbitrary and there is no actual distinction? Not you, I'm asking on account of love.
Yes, I would say that's as mushy a word as the word love.
It's provisional and it's convenient, that's what I'd say.
You'd say that it's just provisional and convenient.
It's a useful tool that we've developed. So it's very useful to know if something's organic.
Include that. I mean, to call multicellular organisms the same thing as single-cellular organisms, I think is a failure of language. To have the same word to describe those two things is a failure of language.
You're talking about a purpose of existence, a teleological driving force behind evolution.
No, I'm not. It's not a driving force. It's the only thing. It's the default force. The default force is the survival of a DNA molecule. That's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
Well, technically, hold on. If you look at thermodynamics, life would be a pretty good, like, rational thing to have in the universe if you got thermodynamics.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
But what
dumbass.
Life is a paramecium, okay? If there was parameciums on Mars, you're telling me you'd find it all so fucking impressive. You'd say, oh boy, thermodynamics is really doing a great job because it has bacteria on it.
Yeah, because that's what life is. Life is
Oh, okay,
life
fine.
is
I'm
a
just saying,
process.
that's why these
Can I
conversations
fucking
might
finish
be
a sentence? I
absolutely
let you go.
different. A fucking little robot Pac-Man has no meaning. A
Okay, I don't want you to just go. I get to have a statement. You're muted.
Yeah, chill out,
Life is
Gary.
a phenomena. Okay, so a river is a phenomena of the water flowing downhill and the water getting rain to the top of the hill, the cycle. Life is a process of entropy pumps.
It
We
is.
pump entropy out. That's what we do. Every single life form, that's what all these organisms, misnamed or not, have in common. We all pump entropy.
Wow, big fucking goddamn deal. Again, the fact that you people can't make a distinction between a glass of water that's pumping fucking entropy
It's not water.
and a
What
fucking
are you talking
sentient
about? I'm
brain
not talking
is
about a glass
friggin'
of water being
retarded,
alive
okay?
here.
I mean, a forest fire is pumping entropy.
No,
I
it
mean,
isn't.
why would just compare the sentient brain to any kind of rubbish on planet Earth? I mean, it's just so
You just
stupid
can't
not to even make a
understand it, I guess.
distinction.
What are you talking? Why do you keep bringing up a glass of water? Nobody's saying the glass of water is living.
Yeah, the glass of water actually has little microbes in it, so yeah, it's
Right.
full of
So
life.
stop calling it
Actually.
water. We're talking
It's
about
full of
living
life,
things.
actually.
Exactly. So it is full of life we're talking about, not the water.
Yeah, it's full of fucking irrelevant, stupid little chemical machines that have no significance, no meaning whatsoever, and you people can't tell the difference between those
They evolved
freaking
into you.
mechanical machines that have no significance or meaningful characteristics and sentient brains. You can't
And
tell the difference between a
entropy was
sentient brain
entropy was to
and
blame for that
a
one.
robot, a computer. Why don't you all
Gets you
have a
what's
big
saying.
why don't you all have a horrific morbid why don't you burn candles at the junkyard where all the poor little iPods have been thrown into the pile to slowly rot and die, even though they still have good neurology left. I mean, why don't you, if you're just going to praise fucking complexity and not recognize that there's only certain kinds of complexity that acquire meaning.
That is what I'm doing. I'm not praising the iPhone
Well,
complexity.
you're praising
I'm not
any
praising
biological
single-celled creatures either.
You're praising any biological life form that can bang against a brick wall and run away.
First of all, I'm not praising anything at all. What I'm doing is analyzing the phenomena of life, intelligence, and emotion.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not going to play this way, Piero. Okay, I didn't do this shit to you last
Yeah,
night.
you
Okay,
did.
I
You go
never
on, you
muted you
interrupt
last
me.
night. Well, I'm not going to do this. You talked on and on last night. All right, I'm not going to play this game where you get to shut me up anytime you feel like it.
Bullshit.
Okay?
I talk 15 seconds and you go, you talk 15 seconds.
Hey, I counted how much time you were 3/4 more time than I was using all of last night. All right, so don't pull that bullshit with me. Okay, you want to tell me to shut up? Then fine, say shut up, but don't fucking mute me.
Okay, well, I asked you to let me interject. I will follow that, though. I will try to ask you to let me interject.
Okay, I think that I'm the one that kind of brought up this business of the paramecium being no different from myself in the grand scheme of things. And what I was referring to is that we're both just sort of what we are. That's the end of it. We're not any better or any higher or lower on a continuum. In 50 years, me and that paramecium will be identical. We'll be of a kind. So it doesn't really, at the end of the day, we're the same
I just
thing.
don't know. I can't find any part of me that's at all meaningful except for the fact that I feel. Taking away my feelings, I can see absolutely no hope of having any purpose whatsoever, or any meaning, or any value, or any. I wouldn't waste a 286 computer on worrying about my welfare without my feelings. So I'm just saying, yes, for me,
But
feelings are everything, not just most of it, it's all of it.
I agree.
Well, there's no way you can argue against that because that's your own personal preference to how you feel.
It's a
Like you said,
logical deduction, so fuck you, okay?
it's not a logical fucking deduction because your axiom is based on your premise. Your axiom is based on a premise. It's not a logical deduction whatsoever. It's an axiom
Just
based
talk
on a
about how
premise.
stupid feelings are, but it's the only thing that gives value. I think you got an inherent thing to sort out there.
You're fucking up a premise with an axiom.
It gives value. I'm saying it has value. My feelings have value. Whether I have good ones or don't have good ones is a value question. It's a dilemma of value. It's not just a projection. It's not just a statement of value.
Valuable.
It's an actual valuable thing.
What makes our feelings valuable? What are the criteria by which we can?
The word harm, bad, destructive, let's see, nasty, repulsive, repugnant, horrible, anguish, torture. The fact that all those words are contingent on the existence of a sentient organism's welfare.
Yeah, and so are all the good emotions.
I'm saying there is no bad without sentience. There's no possibly sensible or rational description of a bad circumstance without a sentient being affected.
Good either. Is there any good in the?
There is. With a sentient, there is. Good is an elevation out of bad. It's good to pull somebody out of quicksand.
Good is good. It's just a function of bad.
No, that's right. Well, it is. It just happens to be the removal of it.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is, in my opinion. It's pretty decisively the removal of bad.
I disagree.
Well, you can do that all you want, but I'm just saying I don't see any reason. I don't see that as a challenge to my perception from certainly personal experience, but every scientific fact I know that
I'm not interested in
the fact that we are deprivated and compelled by a fear of a worsening condition of our welfare, and that is what we often are running from. We're running from a worsening condition to a less worse condition.
This is getting at, Gary. I wanted to point out that some people spend their lives running from things. They are motivated negatively. Other people are moving towards things. They are motivated positively.
Can't run. I'm saying that there is no such thing, okay? So you can say that's what you're doing. Listen, somebody can say they're being altruistic in a purely unselfish way, and I'll say, I can probably give you a blueprint that'll show how you're selfishly altruistic. Okay, it's an illusion. There's no such thing as a positive without a compulsion. You can't give me a description of anything you want to do that you don't need to do.
Well, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to exist. There's nothing I need.
No, you're not going to logically eat dog do. It's not going to happen. All right, you have to be given an incentive to do it. So if I see you eating dog do, I'm going to imagine that there must be some kind of arousal of some stimulation of your appetite through this mechanism, and somehow it provoked you or compelled you to do it because rationally you couldn't come up with any reason to do it.
Will to life. You're basing all this on the will to life, which I do not subscribe to.
I don't subscribe to any will to life either. So again, don't put words or concepts in my mouth, because I obviously don't think there is any such thing as a will to anything. Okay, we have programs. Whatever program wins, whatever philosophical notions in my head become dominant, that becomes my will. My will is arbitrary to the contest that takes place in my brain between different ideas and concepts as they are judged to their veracity by my brain. I've established that I like to be honest. I like to understand the truth.
I'm just sort of saying that, look, okay, we all want to live apparently, but we haven't established that we want to live as an end in itself.
Again, this wanting to live is like saying wanting to be addicted to heroin. We're addicted to living. We're compelled to do it. All right, I get an appetite every day. I get horny every single frickin' day. All right, every day I wake up with compulsions that need gratification and satisfaction, including ego compulsions that are defined by my ambition, my desire to prove myself, to say, look, I am the gladiator, okay, I'm a fan. All these things are compulsions of my psychology. I don't will any of that. That is a natural...
What is it that has the addiction?
What has the addiction is this whole sentient mechanism. That's the very purpose of it, is to create motivational mechanisms. There's no urgency in reality. And nature to make a survival, to make this organism work as a learning machine. Well, let me answer the question. If you're going to ask the question, can I answer it?
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it's not a one-sentence answer. It takes a little tiny bit of explanation, but that's how evolution does actually work. Okay, is that it slowly and incrementally creates a device, okay, that is using sentience, it's using motivational mechanisms to make us think there's urgency, to make us feel what we can't feel exists in the real world. Well, again, you want the answer and you don't want to let me finish it. Fine.
You're saying that something wants us to do something.
I'm saying it's a mechanism to create the very concept of want. That's exactly what the brain does. It creates the whip and the carrot and the horse to whip. We're the horse. It creates the whip and the carrot and manipulates the horse.
Okay, why does it manipulate the horse? What is it that's doing all the
mechanism, and the DNA molecule that has a horse whipper in it wins the race. The mechanism has
flawed. That metaphor's flawed.
One that can manipulate the organism best.
To do anything.
Survival.
That metaphor's flawed because DNA is not trying to do anything.
Not buying. Survival is not an end in itself. You're going to have to prove that.
It is for evolution. That's the whole evolution. So that's what it is for evolution. Survival is the end in itself by definition for evolution. That's the definition
Wait a second,
of evolution.
Anaconavod.
He's saying there's something up there that is doing this for the reason.
No, I'm not. I'm saying it's doing it as its function. It's what the function is. As soon as you create replicating molecules that create blueprints, as soon as you create a blueprint, okay, that evolves, that creates errors, you create evolution. And then all you need is billions of years, quite obviously, for dramatically bizarre things to happen.
Evolution has a function, in other words. It's programmed to do something.
Well, whatever. That's obviously not, in my opinion, a classic or dominant understanding of the mechanism of biological evolution. It does, in fact, rewards change, okay, that advances survivability. That's a fact. Go ahead.
You don't know what the puppeteer is. You're talking about God theory.
So, could I ask Gary a question? Explain this to me like I'm really stupid and an alien just arrived here. I understand the story that you say that you have these sentient feelings that are important to you. They're good, bad, you move away, you value them. And I have a conversation with somebody else and they tell me the same story. The business I would put to you as a question is what do you have to say to me that convinces me that the guy...
I don't run away as a reflexive response. So right there, I've had this argument with you before. It has nothing to do with my behavior. It has to do with my experience. And I'm saying the experience of bad takes place. So it's the very idea that a bad experience happens. I don't, well, you're going like this and you keep making the same argument about running away. It has nothing to do about whether you run away or not. It has to do with the qualia of the experience.
Okay. But the basic question still stands, is that what do you say to say you're person A and I've interviewed person B? Why should person B give a fuck about you?
I can only explain it as that they're all the same thing, and if one of them's drowning, it doesn't matter whether Joe drowns or Mary drowns or Sue drowns. It just doesn't matter. The sentient brains will all have the same experience, so it's the drowning that's bad. It doesn't matter who it's happening to. That just seems fundamental logic. I would just go back to the chessboard and say it doesn't matter which pawn dies. They're all pawns.
So, but that's the point. Is this mattering you're claiming as at the beginning? I'm trying to find out what matters.
Don't you understand the word bad? I'm saying that the sentient suffering is a negative condition. It's bad in and of itself, and it's bad no matter where it manifests. It doesn't matter whether it manifests in a lamppost. It doesn't matter whether it manifests in a star. It doesn't matter where it manifests. It, by itself, in and of itself, is a bad thing.
I
In and
wanted
of
to,
itself,
I don't know if you guys
exists.
but I was kind of curious because earlier Gary was saying that consciousness did not, you know, like Piro said, body consciousness, talking about all the nerve ganglia that's out. And then Gary's response was, well, in technology, we're just going to have a brain in the back, but the brain doesn't feel itself. So what I'm kind of trying to get at here is that it appears, since feeling, Gary's premise is to, you know, I feel, therefore I am, and yet it is the nervous extension off of the brain that is the consciousness, meaning that is the sensual consciousness. It would
No,
appear that all of that is included. And then the secondary thing that I wanted to mention was the hard problem of consciousness that Piro and Antacondavad and I share, that I don't think that Gary and other folks share, is the idea that the brain functions more as a prism or an antenna, and data is publicly, outwardly coming inwardly, going outwardly, entropy, and the idea of, yeah, when you fight and burn a neuron, is
That how can we make any
the prism.
confusion? No, how can we have any confusion about that? You have to go to school to learn. You have to practice an instrument to play an instrument. I mean, there's no confusion about scraping some eternal noise of understanding. No, you have to build understanding just like you have to build the biological organism one little tiny piece at a time. All right? You build your character one piece at a time. These are things built by interaction and by experience. They're not antennaed into your brain, and you don't antenna them out. We talk,
but the thing that
speak in,
DOS Spook's getting at,
we speak in what we hope to be a coherent language, so we can conceptual ideas. I can say something and you can have the same picture in your head. I can say train and you can see train. The problem is that we have words like love, where I see a big pile of nothing and you see, you know, flowers and fireworks and all kinds of bullshit. So we have lots of words that are just fundamentally broken. When you say, somebody says life, right? Do they see little pretty fluffy pink and blue letters, all balloony and pleasant, or do they see, you know, stainless steel knives that say the word life with blood dripping off of them?
Oh, that's...
See, but I think the issue that DOS Spook is bringing up, at least part of it, the issue it makes me think about is that this is really about the information processing. All of these situations, whether it's the human or mammal or any living creature or even a physical system, it's all can be interpreted as how the information is being processed. And the question that's hard for us, I think, when we're discussing consciousness is really not this conscious mind, but what kind of information is an emotion? It is very difficult to understand an emotion as
not information. It's a motivational device.
But it's still information.
Well, you can call it that, but the point is that the way our brain is interpreting it as a problem creator. It can't. There's no radar. Let me finish this. This only takes 60 seconds. Sure. There's no radar device you could create that could see problem in the real world. Okay, it can never detect a problem in the real world. It can never make a problem in the real world. The only place a problem can be created is in our imagination. Our imagination can create a problem, and now it needs solving. And our imagination creates emotional crisis or pain or suffering or negative feelings, and now our brain solves the internal problem. So we identify problems in the real world, we make them real in our brain, and then our brain really reacts to the real problem, which is something is in pain.
Survival. Pain.
Well, I know. Something is in pain. Again, no organism is surviving on purpose. They are merely trying to find comfort. Organisms seek comfort. It's will to comfort. Will to comfort.
Assertion.
Will to comfort.
Yeah, but evolution can't be doing that, or else it wouldn't make us so uncomfortable. So somehow evolution makes us...
That's exactly the whole point. We wouldn't do anything unless it makes us uncomfortable. That's the whole point. It wouldn't work as a motivational mechanism. Evolution has no incentive to make us lazy and happy.
Well, I think
every
you and I are in a
incentive
similar
to force us to
page
grind
here,
and grind and grind and grind. That's the incentive. Make a killer mega monster. Do the Nietzschean best to make your mega monster.
It's got nothing to do with. It's got nothing do with megamonths. It's got everything to do with physics.
No,
If
I'm
you
sorry,
didn't
it has
apply
nothing-
physics
sorry,
to how we
guys,
are, then we
guys
wouldn't
are-
even exist. No, I'm sorry. You
guys
seem
are-
to think that we're
you're-
separate from the universe
you're
somehow.
idiots.
Everything we are is the same thing as the same physics we use today. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but you get things like momentum, emotion, and kinetic energy. All these things apply to us. We don't live in some fucking bubble outside of the universe.
You will
You
just
can apply
wait.
fucking quantum mecanics and all these other things to
Might
us
as
because
well
we recognize them in the
throw
natural
neurons
world. The
into
natural world is no
listening to this fucktard.
it isn't.
Well, let him say what he wants to say,
Why?
Gary.
Why?
No, I'm just gonna listen to
For
Gary
the same
shout.
reason that I've
Gary
been
knows
letting
everything,
you.
you know.
Well, I'm just saying there has to be some sort of rule that actual retards aren't allowed to distract the
So why the
conversation.
fuck are you in here then?
Yeah, there's no
Dumbass.
rule like that.
Well, I'm just saying that
I forgot
I
you're,
would've been long
you're still talking. Yeah, I forgot because this
You're
Gary,
allowed.
function
Gary
better
ran.
if you cut the lowest common denominator off and you say you're
Common denominator. Learn how to speak for fuck's
guys are
sake.
not tall enough for the room.
Okay, Gary, you said that you made a claim or statement or whatever
That's not true.
that we feel
Fucking
pain for a purpose. I would like you to justify that statement.
It has function for minds to acquire learning. Okay, learning is the tool.
The function.
Okay, learning is the tool, and for a learning device, there must be reward and punishment. That's why we're sentient. You will never create. You won't create unless you create a pre-programmed artificial intelligence. You'll never create a learning computer unless you create a value device.
That's fine, but that's not what I'm asking you. What is the function that pain is doing?
Again, biological survival, the DNA, replication of a DNA molecule. It's the premise you keep denying existing. I'm saying that the only reason why it exists is because it's conducive to survival. It advances the toolkit of the organism. It's like having bigger, sharper teeth. Having having a learning brain makes you a more dangerous organism.
Ooh, wow, and dangerous for what? You live in a universe that's basically
dangerous in the sense that you are going to be more competitive, retard. You're more likely to win the gold.
And to what end? To what end? To what end?
You can't win, and you can't even win even a grammar school contest.
It sounds like you're giving purpose to life more than you actually want to admit.
No,
that's your problem.
I want to be on Gary's side a little bit in this because look,
value, dumbass.
it's like when the water starts rolling downhill and it's going to keep rolling downhill. It doesn't mean the purpose in life is for that water to roll downhill. It's the same thing with life. We don't necessarily have to know how it started, but the fact is, once this phenomena of having these emotions existed, it seems like we start to see this will to survive, and it's the water rolling downhill that it's going to keep trying to survive.
Of skiing down the hill rather than just falling down the hill. That's what a brain allows you to do.
It's life
to navigate,
purpose, right?
To navigate more efficiently and be a more efficient Pac-Man. You win the Pac-Man competition because you more efficiently gobble up the little party.
So the difference comes in
that
the difference comes in is that the water never starts trying to go downhill. At least I don't think so. But the life phenomena tries
to
keep itself going.
This is just a game you're playing, okay? This stupid.
Well, I believe in will. I'm not going to pretend I don't believe in will because I talk to you. Right? But let's not go into that.
Compulsion and trying are not the same.
We don't have to go into every single thing we know we disagree on, like whether there's will.
Compulsion and trying are not the same words.
Okay, let me just sort of narrow down something that Pyro just said. Okay, we know that we want to live, but we don't know if we want to live as an end in itself. We want to live in order to do things, or do we want to live just to live?
Will to comfort.
Nope, wrong. Will to power. Why not? Will to meaning.
I don't know. Will not to fucking not exist. I don't like the idea of non-existent.
Yeah, there you go.
I just don't.
You know,
I like this thing because it's all I know. I don't know what it's like not to exist, so I don't want to go there. I know what it's like to see somebody else not exist, and it's not very nice. They're dead.
Yeah,
well, that's just pop culture talk. That's just pop culture and your programming talk.
That's not pop culture. How many times have you died, Amendum?
Just a delusion in your head. There's no evidence in the real world that you're existent means a damn thing.
It means
So
shit
the
to
reason
me.
that
No,
you're
I'm
making
gonna
it a
use it.
crisis
It means a lot to me. My emotions, it means something to
projection.
me. It means
Entirely
something to me, and I don't give a fuck what you think. It
Boron,
means
do
something
you
to
think
me.
a shark
So it
gives a
doesn't
shit
matter.
about
Doesn't
survival?
matter. Doesn't
Do you think
matter.
a shark gives a fuck about survival?
A shark
Yes.
doesn't think like me, so probably not.
Oh, yeah, well, probably not. That's right. It cares about having a full belly. Cares about.
But I don't give a fuck what a shark thinks, because I'm not
Doesn't
a
give
fucking
rat's
shark.
ass about any concept of survival or making babies or doing any of that crap. It just cares about gooey vagina and fucking something to eat.
What I would say is we know that we want to live, but we don't know why we want to live. It all the way back to Nietzsche. The will to power. Okay, the will
Freud
to
would answer that question for you, but I mean, obviously, I can't defend volumes of psychiatric evaluation and tell you why exactly you want to live. But the fact that you think you want to live is just a notion in your head. What you want is ego gratification, satisfaction of hunger, and the horny thing. That's
So how do you explain that the body goes into basic preservation without you even knowing it? How do you explain that shit? Without your conscious awareness of shit.
Obviously, when people got frustrated in the Middle Ages, what did they do? Oh, that's right. They picked up a big frickin' sledgehammer and they started charging a bunch of other guys because they basically said, my life sucks so bad that I either win the lottery by bashing somebody else's brains in or I'd rather be dead. Okay, that's how much they want to survive. They didn't want to survive. They wanted to be comfortable. They wanted to be comfortable. If you're going to go across a field with a pitchfork, okay, aimed at another man's face, all right, you have to have a hell of a fucking incentive to run across a field with a pitchfork and to poke it in somebody else's fucking nuts. To do that, you can't love life. You've got to detest life.
Oh, you've got to love the Russian, Gary.
No,
you like to love. You love the sound and the guns going off, the bullets whizzing past your head. You love all that.
I agree with Gary. I think that comes from detesting life, really.
Well, maybe in the case of that particular night, but there's too much evidence to the contrary. You get people in nice, comfortable jobs in Germany somehow getting to France and joining the Foreign Legion to go through 5 years of hell.
Everybody acclimates. Yes, everybody needs a new hooker. Okay, nobody goes to the same hooker for 50 years. They all get a new, younger one. So we all play that game. We get bored. Yes, this is a syndrome of our psychology. It has nothing to do with a will to life. It has to do to the will of wipe your dick with her hair and then move on.
Disagree. Disagree.
When stars are
we can't say that we know why.
When Stiser says it matters to him that he lives, okay, when Stiser, he might say, I'm just saying it matters to me. And you explain to him that that mattering doesn't count. It seems to me that when we talk about
with cancer, I'm not going to keep doing this with you. We can't communicate on this subject because you're not going to make the distinction between an accurately described value, which is the suffering of a child, and a projected value, which is the value of your existence. The value of your existence and the value of a feeling organism in pain are not the same thing. They're categorically different things. And I will not accept your argument that because I say one has no value, I have to say the other has no value. The two things have nothing to do with each other. If you like cheesecake, it has nothing to do with the fact that it is a bad thing if somebody was to kick your dog in the nuts.
I've not said that they have something to do with each other. When I spoke to you about person A and person B, ultimately, when it got down to the bottom of it, you asserted that it matters because of sameness. That's it.
It matters that Skyzer is in pain, or that he's worried, or that he's fretting. His worry, his fret, his concern is important because he's a feeling organism. What
Because
isn't
you said
important
so.
is why he is feeling. If you feel like you want to cure cancer, that's a feeling to
you
be
said so.
admired. That's a value-rich feeling. If you feel like raping a
Because you said
7-year-old, that's a value-negative feeling.
Because you said so.
No, because logic says so. Because one is bad and one is good, you fucking idiot!
No, there's no logic. When I talked about
I'm
person
sorry,
A and
bad
person
is
B,
bad, butthead.
you said,
I'm so sick
right,
of this fucking idiotic conversation.
said
Why'd you
about the
compare it to a
yes
glass of
Lord
water
and
again?
all this.
Go ahead. Say a kid with cancer is the
No
same as a glass
logical
of water.
reference.
Go ahead and say it, you fucking idiot.
What do you want me to say? I'll say it.
Okay, go ahead. I'm saying that you nihilist motherfuckers are the insanest motherfuckers on this planet. Worse than the worst Christian, worse than the worst Nazi, worse than the worst Khmer Rouge. You nihilist motherfuckers are spitting and raping the most valuable thing on this fucking goddamn planet, and you don't even realize it. You're disgusting rapists of value.
You realize it. See, that speaks directly to what Heidler did you said. It doesn't matter what you think. It's what I think that's important about you. I know you better than you know yourself.
Oh,
Rubbish.
You don't know shit. You don't know the difference between a glass of water and a kid with cancer. You don't know shit. Yeah, well, you don't know shit. Newsflash. You don't know shit then. If you can't see the difference between those two things, you are a dumb motherfucker.
Okay, then it's in my nature to be that way. There's no value attached to that state.
I can't learn. I could never play the violin. I'm uneducable. Okay, so you're uneducable white by defiance alone. By defiance alone, you're uneducable. Okay, you say so. I say bull.
The purpose of life is to turn entropy into information.
Oh, here we go. Purpose again. There is no purpose.
The purpose of life, the purpose that it runs on, it invents the idea of purpose, so I can use the word purpose. And all life is turning entropy into information. All life is taking entropy, energy from its surroundings.
All right, I get it. Okay, you're all nihilist and you're all out of your fucking mind. I personally can't tell a glass of water from a goddamn...
Okay, I'm muting you because you're talking over me, and I'm not a nihilist. There's nothing nihilistic about this. You know, I muted you, Gary, because you're talking over me, and you said you wouldn't. We were going to have some sort of agreement.
No, we're not going to have any agreement. Fuck this. I'm not going to waste my time talking with nihilists. It's like talking with fucking people with their anarchy.
Well, then get out of here.
Please. Conversation.
If we're nihilists, you're a fucking fascist, right? You can't treat anybody with...
Fine, I don't mind it. Go ahead, call me a fascist. Cool. I'm an elitist.
Right.
An intellectual elitist who believes that glasses of water are more important, or less important than sentient organisms. Fucking right. I'm a goddamn
It's on the poor. You want to fucking ram your education system down, everybody.
It's all sentient life on this planet. It's a big, fat, juicy, British squat. All the other organisms don't, because fat says so. Well, fuck you, fatty. You're a stupid, dumb, motherfucking nihilist cunt, and you can't get up your ass hard enough, in my opinion.
The rage. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's over.
Wow.
The circus has left.
That was boss. I love it when he nearly has a stroke.
The thing is,
So hilarious.
I hope he comes back.
He doesn't like physics much, does he? When you say the word like thermodynamics and entropy and life in the same sense, he goes nuts. It's like, if you live in the universe, Gary, thermodynamics does apply to human beings as well. Just so you know.
The problem is that he's just so dense. He doesn't understand like simple concept like what Hochler is trying to explain to him. Like I was about to say to him, like, Gary, do you understand the difference, let's say, between these two statements? Gary's suffering is a bad, quote-unquote, negative experience, and the statement, it is bad, negative, for Gary to be experiencing suffering. So like notice how the context is entirely different. In the former,
Yeah.
we're talking about a subjective state of experience, and in the latter, we're talking about existence itself.
Yeah.
And the former doesn't logically entail the latter. But if you try to
Exactly.
explain that to him, he just thinks that you're just some evil monster who doesn't
Nihilist.
see any qualitative difference between
Nihilist.
stabbing someone in the eye and feeding them a cupcake. He just doesn't get it.
It's so bizarre as well. So
Well, hang on, guys. I was curious, though, of, Hoffer did mention that the argument came down to sameness, that his statement of his, I like cheesecake and I want to cure cancer, one's subjective, the other one's external, and Hoffladay had mentioned that it's his equating the sameness of badness or goodness that is what he's doing. And then to disjoint those, and by necessity disjoint them. But I'm curious of, Gary as a psychological argument that bonds those two together. And I'm also curious of the possibility of why it is they're detached, and to the point where you say, I think it's a good thing to cure cancer in this case, and I think it's a good thing to have kids in this.
because he sees the I as representative as his own pain. You know what? Sorry, Archibald, it's just your mic sucks, dude. It's so low and like out. It's like I'm interrupting you and you're still speaking, so I apologize. Yeah, it cuts out
Yeah,
really low.
yeah. I mentioned that before on Contact. Your mic is
From an
terrible.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt.
perspective, from a godlike perspective, you can look down at the pawns on the chessboard and say they're all equal, and that there's no reason to distinguish them, but only from a godlike perspective. Yeah, if you were actually a pawn, you have no argument to say why you shouldn't, prefer your own existence to the one at the side of you.
Do you see why I kept saying he's bringing God into this?
He's like a honestly, he's
No,
the most born again
it-
Christian ever.
The thing that he's failing to understand is that his value for fairness, this concept of fairness, is just a value. He sees it, it's so intuitive that to him he sees it as an objective fact of the universe. Like this whole fairness, like equal, two things that are substantively the same should be treated equally. He sees that as so intuitive that he doesn't understand that that's actually a value judgment in and of itself. To value fairness over, say, your own hedonistic pleasure is a preference, and he just doesn't get that.
And it's also biased towards you as a human being. I mean, the point. I mean, he doesn't understand that we already know the shit that he says. Like, we know that life's, just doing what it's doing, and he doesn't seem to be any reason for life. Most atheists will fucking accept that, But at the same time, as if I'm alive as a sentient being, it's up to you what you value. I value my own existence, obviously. I like this idea of being alive. I've got nothing to compare it to, so yeah, I like it. I know the alternative because I can see it objectively, which is people being fucking dead and not in my sphere of reality or whatever. So I choose to stay alive as long as possible, if possible.
Do you see the value in what he's doing? He is arguing contemporary ethics to their ultimate extreme end. So what he's doing is he's showing us what our ethics really say. And when you look at our own contemporary ethics, there's a nihilistic time bomb built right into them. So he's simply taking conventional contemporary ethics and pushing them to the ultimate extreme. That is an awesome way, and the fact that he refuses to back down under any circumstances ever makes him enormously valuable. Because what he's doing is you have to throw out all the old assumptions that you had based on our old ethical system, the Judeo-Christian ethical system.
Well,
You got to start off.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Talks about common sense ethics, things which are plausible, like, oh, look at the terrible machinery that is evolution, and that it's a gladiator game, and that it has no purpose. It makes constant emotional appeals to superficial emotional appeals. So it's not contemporary ethics. It doesn't deal with all the specific. I mean, I'd like to see him do a walk and talk where he actually says, so it's evolution and it's a gladiator war. Now, I know what the Kantians would say here, they would say this, and to them I would say this. And I know what the virtue ethicists would say here, and to them I would say that. If he had any conception of contemporary ethics and context, then that's what he would do if he was a true philosopher. But he doesn't.
He has a very good grasp of contemporary ethics. He does.
I think I'm just going to go back to what Vic was saying. I think he totally confuses the objectivity of us existing, right, with the whole I exist thing, and uses the whole my pain, my suffering, and then imposes that as some rational, objective truth when we know it's not. That's complete bollocks. I mean, Arkenvard just said that he's got some, ethical view. Well, most of the stuff I come up with's got nothing to do with fucking ethics. It's just basic physics, I used the word entropy before, which is in it, Pyro just said in every organism, it's in everything entropy, right? The universe is based on this stuff. Entropy gave, well, according to Monday science that we know so far, entropy is what made you, in its weirdness, because it also creates order as well as chaos in the sense of.
Yeah, I think the thing is, the problem for me is often what I'm so frustrated with, and it happened last week, is just how limiting the conversation is supposed to be. Because I think that we have to break a lot of paradigms. We have a lot of information, a lot of systems, thought systems that are thousands of years old. They've got lots of things, that right with them, but they need to be refactored. Like in program, we call it, broken down, reused, refactored, fit together. And so to me, for example, this issue we're talking about Gary is the same issue we're talking about in consciousness, and it's really the fundamental problem we're dealing with is the relationship between this emotional stream of information, I'll call it, and this analytic stream of processing. And how they work together. And what we understand about information is really weighted over on this Aristotle side of 2 + 2. We don't understand this more common experience of having an emotion. And so, Gary's a great example of this whole topic of he's all about we've got to be rational, and yet he's so emotional. He obviously uses his emotion in his thinking, but then he says thinking doesn't use emotion, and we all kind of are guilty, well, not me, you guys are all pretty guilty of saying that kind of thing, like we can't sort out emotion, but it's the hard thing, it's the hard problem. That's really what we're talking about, whether we know it or not.
Well, in Gary's defense, okay, go ahead.
No, go on, Vic, go on.
You go ahead.
Go on, Vic.
I was going to say, in Gary's defense, I wouldn't say that his argument is contingent on his emotions. I think that he firmly believes that his argument is completely objective in nature. It's just that he's not seeing. So I don't think it's not his. He gets emotional about this subject. He's obviously very emotionally invested, but I don't think the argument itself depends on his emotions. I think he just doesn't see that some of the things that he considers an objective fact are actually just personal value judgments. That's what he's not grasping.
Well, we're just having a semantic thing then, Vic, because I would call that emotion. Right?
Well,
he doesn't realize some of his things are emotions.
Yeah, I would say that his emotions kind of block him. It prevents him from actually being objective about this issue and accepting what other people are saying, listening to people.
His main one is anger. It's anger that drives his passion.
But see, this is where I get to defend Gary, because my premise is that we're all doing that. And when we're having our pure mathematical thoughts, we're just following emotions we have better relationships with, like curiosity, the feeling of discovery. We're still following always emotions. So he gets these anger emotions that pollute his communication, like that happens to all of us. But we're all working from emotions, all of us, all the time.
Yeah, but that's not the type of emotion that's kind of impeding us from achieving the truth.
No, I agree. Exactly. No, I agree with what you said in that sense. I was just saying, in another sense, I don't want to blame Gary for being emotionally driven, as though we're not all. But hopefully we balance, have a balanced approach, but it's still going to be emotional.
Well, he's not very emotionally variable is the thing. He kind of canonizes as emotion, and I think as a psychological kind of perspective, analyzing Gary, here's a guy in his 50s, no family, he's got a philosophy that he wants to make true and believes it so heavily that he's willing to fight and talk over everyone on a really consistent basis in order to argue it. He doesn't want to, like Vic said, listen to other people and actually engage with what's being said, because I guess he feels like he's already done that, and so now he's just trying to win the war on a constant basis. And quite frankly, I can't.
What I would put forward is the idea that he actually got involved in this. He built his argument based upon his experience of suffering. Now, can influence your emotions can influence your reasoning capacity. If your emotions will give you what is valuable. You're overwhelmed by rational life, right? Rational thinking.
You kind of keep cutting out and shit, man.
Yeah, your mic is absolutely awful on account of that. You need to get that fixed.
Maybe I'll talk
slow, you know.
What I think is, okay, has anyone here ever had a mood disorder?
Anxiety. That's I don't know if that's mood.
Wait. On account of what I was muted when I was trying to tell you. What happens is noise cancellation kicks in at weird times on those mics, and so it might, if you just put it closer to your mouth, might work because you just cut in and out. And I think the noise cancellation in some part, you know.
Okay. Well, here's
lagging as well, you know.
Gary. He's obviously a fellow who suffers terribly from anxiety. He may suffer from a number of other is real, okay, and it blocks out everything else, and the desire to end that suffering is sort of overwhelms everything else. Now, while you're actually developing your reasoning process, Dr. Gregory Sadler is currently doing a series on how anger does that, how anger informs your reasoning. And I would say that all your emotions inform your reasoning enormously. So you can't and only your emotions can give you a motive, right? So his reason is to escape from that horror that he has experienced, or he fears he will experience again, or maybe he is in this very moment experiencing. So you're going to get frustrated when nobody else can see how horribly you are suffering. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to say that makes him right. What I'm saying is it explains everything.
Yeah, I said that before. I said that before. It's this anger that keeps him going. Which is kind of ironic when he doesn't like the idea of the whole emotions aren't a bad thing. Emotions are required. Everything we do. I mean, I just come at this simply from a physics perspective because I don't do the whole, you know, psychological shit because I'm not a psychologist for the start. But I do like science, and I think people tend to separate themselves from basic physics that we know that happens with molecules and atoms and, you know, all that crazy stuff that is on this very small. That affects human beings, but we get these weird things called emotions that are actually just, you know, inbuilt decision-making processes, what we like and what we don't like, but we call them emotions, but they are subject to the environment in which we live in. The family you may be born into, the street which you may live in, the people you may meet, all these things are interactions. Nobody is I am on their own. No one's an island, as the phrase goes. You know, we're all in this together because we're all giving each other vibes and all that shit. So I think that's the main thing. And I think for Gary, I don't think he's wrong that much, but I think he's wrong in the sense that he doesn't understand that being alive isn't inherently bad. That's my only issue with this message. Being alive isn't inherently bad because there is no inherently good or bad to life in the first place.
I don't
know
think
what it
that's
is.
necessarily what he's saying, though. I think he's saying that suffering is inherently bad, and it just so happens that life is the only thing that can generate suffering. So, by extension, life should be extinguished. That's his reasoning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Inherently bad, and it's actually not. It's just our subjective view. Most of the things on the planet don't feel shit, and they're They're alive.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that I don't understand with Gary is that he seems to think that unless he can prove that something is an objective fact, it's somehow meaningless, and that's stupid. I mean, subjective opinions matter. They do. You know, if the majority of people think that suffering is bad to them, right? Well, everybody thinks that suffering is bad to them, but if the majority of people think that we should eliminate suffering, then we should probably do that. You know, I mean.
It still doesn't make it objectively true, though.
No, right. But then that's the thing, is that he tries to paint it as an objective fact because he has said himself that unless it's an objective fact, then it's meaningless. What's the point of the discussion? Your opinion is just as valid as mine, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And, okay, yeah, that's true, I suppose. In an objective sense, one opinion, the opinion to be a selfish hedonist is just as valid and irrational, illogical as the opinion to be an ethical person, but that's just an appeal to consequences, right? There's.
Well, I
so
mean,
what?
I mean, if you go to the extreme, go on, Ahmed. Sorry, I know you're like, I'm giving you a chance.
I've said that what he's essentially done is he's abolished guilt because he's pushed it to, reductio ad absurdum.
Maybe we should turn his video off.
Yeah, on account of like the last thing we heard was reductio ad absurdum.
Oh. Okay. Oh boy. All right.
Turn your video off and see if your audio gets better somehow.
It could be. Maybe it's not the mic. Maybe it's your.
I think he's lagging as well, you know, because it.
Bandwidth.
Yeah, bandwidth.
Where's that beautiful PC you used to make videos with?
Yeah.
Where is that thing? Did you sell it? Sold it for heroin. Because you see, it looks like. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Maybe enough about Gary. I wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Which you were saying I don't know death, and I've only known living. But then you do take into the, you do go to sleep and go into the vegetative state every night. So that's kind of a turning off of all of the value systems and consciousness systems. And one could equate that to absence and respect. And then I wanted to get back to this hard problem of consciousness that I do view as a hard problem because of I'm not denying internal neuronal states and chemistry, but I do like the way, Stizer, you came at the Gary argument with the idea of, hey, you're not an island, you are part of everything. And I'm just wondering to what extent even Hofstadter might respond to this, like to the extent that at a Planck level to a Planck level, indefinitely, infinitely outward, we're all part of the cosmos, connected to everything. I'm just kind of stuck on the idea that the mind can as a prism where information is coming in, may actually be external. We're just witnessing at this intracranial.
Well, it just gets. I mean, you see, the thing is, like, I never really was into the Bible or any of that shit. I just loved science books when I was growing up as a kid. And the thing that fascinated me is not knowing shit. That's always fascinated me. I think that's always intrigued me about life. The not knowing part is the always interesting bit. Because if you don't know shit, I want to know how does that even work? How does the not knowing shit work, right? So for me, I got into quantum physics really early as like a kid, and matter and what's matter, what is this crazy shit that we're made of and all that stuff, and atoms. And it turns out, if you ask any scientist in today's hierarchy, they will be honest and say we've got no fucking idea what matter really is. We don't know. We give it's a category of shit. That's all they say. It's just, we know it's this, but we don't know how it forms in the universe, right? We know there's something called energy and it's everywhere, but we still don't even know what that shit is, right? But we know the universe had some kind of beginning, because if it didn't, it would boggle our brain, and our brains don't work that way. There's only two ideas. The human psyche literally can handle. One is infinity and the other one is finite. Now, they are both extremes in science anyway, because there's no such thing as finite, really, technically speaking, only other than boundaries. And there's no such thing as infinity because it doesn't stop. So we're stuck in a rock and a hard place, exactly with the universe. And my favorite quote for quantum mechanics is that, how do you measure something if you're the measuring stick, basically? And I've always loved that quote, and it's my favorite quote because it just boggles my brain. It's like, wow, that just gives us possibilities that are endless, really.
Yeah. How do you get a finite infinity?
Yeah. It's just,
So I wanted to say something to what Das Spook was saying. I don't know if you're there, Michael.
I think he kind of out. That's the only reason why I jumped in, because he liked it, and then it just
He was going all Max Headroom there for a minute, but it was working. He was all coming through for me, but it was kind of like, I'm lock in my brain. Oh, so he's gone. Oh yeah, well, I'd like to talk to him about the stuff he was bringing up, and also just this, basically what I'm saying is I think there's a physical answer. It occurs to me, and I mean it's definitely way out there. I'm not saying I could prove it, but to me there's a convergence that this emotional output, I think it's exactly the kind of output you'd expect from a quantum computer. If you showed a quantum computer all the sensory input, and it would just get a feeling like, oh, there's danger. This is what you would expect from organically built quantum computer, and that's what we get. And it answers this deep question of the Gestalt. Why is it that we look at a view and see the whole thing at once and then pick out the details? Why is or language, sentences, run-on sentences with no spaces between words, where there is no words, it's just a stream. That's older than words. That's older than the concept of letters. We're supposed to be building the sentences out of letters. No, the real history is we get this gestalt, this picture that we just feel, and it has, we know that can be bullshit, but it's, it's pretty good. It works pretty good, and then you could double check it with this rationality, but it's so fast, and it's so much information. And if that's true, I think there's stuff we can do. We can use that information. If that's what our emotions are, is the output of a quantum algorithm, I think that makes it easier to handle our emotions.
Well, I'm just gonna point out what you just said. I think the problem is with the whole conforming to logic thing is there's no such thing really as logic as in the universe. There's this thing called logic, like binary code, whatever. Things do things, and we can work it out. But that doesn't really exist in the realms of
It's a
human being. Yeah, it's a construct of our own mind in order for us to get to grips with existence itself. There is not all the things that we did in the universe to understand it are conformities to our own understanding of being who we are. We reflect the universe by our own
physical phenomena. So
the physical phenomena is only the fact that the sentience we inhabit actually only reflects the understanding of the universe itself. So the universe is only a representation of our own fucking self. That's it. The universe got bigger and bigger with our own intelligence. It didn't get smaller or do anything else. It didn't change. It only changed to us.
But
the universe has always been the same fucking thing it's always been. It changed to our perception. That's all.
But the thing is, at your location, you are what the universe is at that location. You are what the universe is at that location. So if you're saying, hey, I'm projecting my sense of the universe, well, that's probably okay because you are the universe right there.
Well, no, but you got to understand this. If let's say, I am me, right? So any input I get is based on sensories, which I'm understanding. So therefore, my projection of what the universe is only based on what I understand the universe is giving me back. So if I'm limiting myself to a box, then I'm only going to get a box back. If I say, well, there's no such thing as infinity or finite shit, then the universe becomes even more spectacular because I'm not limiting myself to these parameters which have been set before me by some notion that this is the way it has to be. There is no law in any realm of possibility that says this is the way it is. If we thought that way, we wouldn't have discovered fucking atoms. And all
That's
this
why I say
But see, here's where I am at this. Is like I felt this difference, and I think it all comes to a head over information. Is the idea of information just one of these things that's inside our brain, and they're like color, and outside the brain, it's something different, like it's wavelength or whatever. It's kind of an arbitrary. Is information itself like that? And I think no, it isn't. Therefore, when we experience informational structures inside our brain as part of our experience, yeah, we are actually experimenting out there in the universe, because in here is the universe. We're looking at the universe when we experience our own experiences, and therefore it is empirical to look at your own experiences because you are a phenomena of nature. So we actually repair some of our psychosis of projecting ghosts and everything into the world and gods and stuff. Yeah, we need to be more careful, but we're not totally helpless. We are a phenomena. We can speak about ourselves and be speaking about the universe because we're a phenomena in the universe. So it's okay to measure the universe against yourself in the sense that you are the universe.
I have a couple questions to you, for you, Piero. One, why do you think it needs to be like a quantum computer? Is that somehow fundamental to your idea of consciousness in some way? It can't be like
No.
purely mechanistic?
It's just that there's no way to have some sort of a Turing machine generate consciousness or do, even in parallel processing, the kind of processing that the human mind and other minds do. So I think we have to look for... you
Because
have
of the
to look...
number of calculations per second? Is that what you mean? Because, I mean, we already have supercomputers that work mechanistically that aren't quantum computers that work much faster than the human brain does. So...
No, not really, not at certain tasks.
Yeah, but this is the point.
Well, that's just, it's not a matter of computing power, it's just a matter of just the algorithms. We don't
Okay,
have the algorithms.
Well, for example, I mean, I expect to have these phenomena to explain some of these things. For example, photosynthesis, is very difficult to explain classically how that would work. And a few years ago, they discovered, oh, well, it's a quantum process where there's basically waveguides for those photons so that the photons are fed through a quantum, machine to where they are used to make sugar, right? So I think that there's certain things that are mechanistically difficult to do in complexity theory that are not difficult with quantum computing processes, and I would suspect that opportunistic life forms will have used them.
Well, we already know that creating a quantum computer is extremely difficult, so if your contention is that the human brain is an actual quantum computer, that's a pretty bold statement. Like, I don't think
it's pretty hard to make robots too. But
well, a quantum computer, a quantum brain couldn't make a quantum computer. Put it that way.
I don't know if we have any evidence that we actually have a quantum, like a brain that fundamentally functions.
Okay, well, there's no evidence that the brain functions like a Turing machine either.
Well, no, here's our logic.
What do you think we have evidence that it functions like? It's wired
together.
No,
hold on a minute. Hold on. What I'm saying is, in order for a quantum computer to make a quantum brain to make a quantum computer, you just get a state which would be a Turing machine, right? So, if you think about it, it's just scale, right? So before a quantum computer, you would still have a Turing computer.
No, I'm not suggesting, Piero, that we know for a fact that the brain works mechanistically in some deterministic fashion. What I'm saying is that whether it works mechanistically or it has some sort of quantum uncertainty involved in it is kind of irrelevant, right? Consciousness is still this effect that is produced by the brain, whether it's in deterministic fashion or deterministic fashion. It seems that kind of leads to my second question: is how did this whole issue of the nature of consciousness arise with respect to this discussion of,
Gary said
well, wait, before somebody answers that, can I answer what you were saying or address it? I think the main reason that I'm saying that that we can actually go ahead and say, look, there is evidence that there might be a quantum computing process is, as I was saying, trying to explain this gestalt. How does the brain look at something and get this feeling for it? It's multi-processing beyond its mere parallelism. It seems to me, and quantum computing processes work that kind of way. Give an unreliable answer, reliable to some percentage probability, not 100%. Unlike doing a mathematical computation correctly, it'll always get the right answer. Quantum computations don't always come up with the same or the right answer.
Yeah,
So,
but qualia is not about randomness, right? It's
well,
totally
neither
different
is quantum
concept.
mechanics is not about randomness. So that
Well,
bugs
even
me because
probability,
it's not about
qualia
it.
is not the same as probability
Quantum mechanics is
either.
about control. The randomness and probability is understood and controlled. Quantum mechanical processes are about eliminating these natural randomnesses and guiding them. It's not about making something random.
I understand, but I don't understand
can I
where
just
you're
interject
making
one
that
second?
correlation between that quantum whatever probability, randomness, whatever you want to call it, and this notion of qualia. Like, where do you see that link between these two concepts?
Right.
Hold on.
Okay. I'll let
Before you
somebody
guys
else
talk,
talk, but that's the
before,
question. Wait,
wait
I'll let
before you
somebody else
guys
talk,
talk.
but Vic, that is the question. You're right. That's a
Yeah,
very
I
good
just wanted to see if Hook
charge
mics
and
work
question. Yeah.
before anyone else speaks. Just Hook, do you want to test your mic real quick, and then you guys can continue. Just to test Hook's mic.
No, it's hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Works fine, Hook. Works fine.
Right. And can you hear an echo when you talk? That's the
No.
important thing because I don't have headphones.
No, works fine, dude.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I like the way you put it to us, Piro, because you're basically saying what value do the emotions have? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
What value do the emotions have? Again, that's why
He's stuck for me.
Yeah, he's
Right. So,
frozen.
for example, we always talk about emotions. Often we were talking about rating these emotions from 0 to 100, and yet they have their own flavor and they're inherently complex. It's hard for me to consider that a scalar or even a vector, even an n-dimensional vector.
They're all the same.
It's hard for me to imagine an emotional state as a vector, even a huge matrice, which is still just like a number to me, higher mathematics. That is hard for me to see it as a matrix. And I know it's hard to simulate intelligent processes in computers just doing big matrix math. But I can picture that as a quantum result state, because quantum results have this inherent complexity. They're really a result about how things are related, and so to me, if it's not something like that, well, you have to come up with something, because it certainly does not look like a number. It does not look like love can be explained as you got love from 0 to 100%. That does not work.
Well, you don't need to give it a 0 to 100 number. All you need to do is to understand that there's processes that happen in human beings, and it's 0 and 1. You will invoke that shit, or you won't invoke that shit. If you invoke an emotion, that's a 1. If you don't, it's a 0. Now, we can't really say that because we're emotional things. It's always 1 or 0. We are the Turing device. That's the point I was trying to make before. We are the Turing device, a very good one, but we're not a quantum device. Yeah, you can't make a quantum device if a quantum computer will never make a quantum computer. It would be
No, that
stupid.
doesn't make sense.
It's not the point. We can.
But he's saying we are
Affected by quantum. Like if grant a matrix. First, I wanted to back up to Vic, because Vic asked the question about quanta and so forth, and immediately I thought the answer still rested in the idea that he said the brain is. He said the source of consciousness is to being the location of consciousness. And I think the idea of saying source, it internalizes it within a cranium, it excludes it and draws it off or outlines it. And the idea of the emotions being a quantum collapse appear or could be occurring, I want to say, externally in the consciousness. Once again, the brain is the location, but not. I think there's semantic
I caught like maybe half of it. On a concept, can you mute your mic?
Sure.
Well, Michael, do you want to just repeat that last bit, dude? Because it got like. Yeah, unmute yourself, Michael.
Oh, I guess I was just reiterating that I'm not. I wouldn't want to get into an argument with you, Sty, about whether a quantum machine could make another one, because logically I think your statement is correct, but the idea of an emotion being a quantum collapse, to me, appears as if information external to the being finds itself in the being at a location, and that stirs this emotion or this thought or this presencing of consciousness, where, and one could say the universe is a quantum computer, granting it kind of a matrixy outlook, if one will, or not. But I do think that there should be a distinction between consciousness being sourced from the brain or just the brain's location.
Well,
Yes.
what if
here's the thing. Wait, but
processing was happening, Pato, and the errors with the emotions?
well, yeah.
Where's
But here's the thing. Okay, where should we get into this, though? On account of
It's Annie,
Oh,
plug your headphones in, dude.
Yeah, you
Your
need
mic
really
works
to buy
fine
a
now,
headset
plug your
on
headphones.
account of it.
So,
Go on, Pato.
Dog
Sorry.
Spook, here's the thing, and I was responding to when you got ejected there from the network earlier on too. And so I had a question too about it. But basically, one is like what you just described. I think that is the situation, and I think there really isn't even an option to say we're not in a quantum computer or a physics computer with quantum and all of the kinds of processes, because it just turns out that it's just a matter of semantics, right? You have a state, which is information, something that processes it and makes another state, which is information. That's information processing. That is computing. So, and then this locality is the kind of thing that I'm curious about. And what I was trying to run by you is, what I'm saying is, it occurred to me that a quantum computer would think in Gestalt. You know, it would think this artist side of seeing everything at once and together, and it can't be pieced apart and understood the same way. There's a Gestalt aspect to our mind that's so hard, so powerful and hard to explain, that I think that, yeah, you could have a quantum computing process in the universe. It's got a node here, and it concentrates this phenomena, this quantum state, and somehow that is what we experience as an emotion or consciousness.
well,
Yeah, but my problem with that would be that. Go on, Annie. Shit, sorry, go on, dude.
have you ever discussed this with a woman, Piero? Because their perceptions, I believe, work more along those lines. I think that their perceptions are more sort of Gestalt than ours are.
I thought you were going to say Gestapo.
Gestapo, yeah. Well, I would say that, or I shouldn't really, I'm not going to generalize that sexistly, but I would say that a woman tends to see life as a thing. Men go in at the details. So I think that that women actually would be the ones to talk to about that, assuming, of course, though, that they would have developed the vocabulary. If you've ever listened to a bunch of women talking, what they're talking about is always their feelings.
I am getting a real sexist vibe after this, to tell you the truth.
Okay,
but,
that's fine.
But how about this? Let's do this. We could just talk to Marshall McLuhan, all that figure and ground stuff. Spook, you probably know about all that figure and ground stuff, right? It's like the ground is the quantum computing, and the figure is the modern last 1,000 years of logic analytic, whenever that came in. It's like that's the pairing, you know? And it would make total sense, because how do we process ground is exactly in this all at once. And we get it wrong. We process this scene and maybe we think it's figures, and we look and like, oh no, it's just shadows and bushes. We process it, we can get it wrong. And it has this just forming on its own kind of issue that is so inexplicable with traditional analysis, and yet it matches, I think, this quantum.
Okay, Stizer.
Yeah.
You mentioned your quote. Here's a good one that you might like. It's one I keep bringing up. It's by Picasso. He's talking about cubism. He says, "Don't paint what you see. Paint what you know is there." Now, what he's doing is, like, Cubism sort of said that look at things from every possible angle at once. That's a Gestalt way of looking at things, right? Everything at once. Bang! It hits you. Now, it's just one big experience. Is that what you're referring to, Piero?
He's just got up and he's there.
Oh.
He's doing something. He's coming back, I think, for his headphones.
Well,
Because again, it's rather than looking at things as a whole bunch of details, you look at it as one big entity, one big it, and that's cubism. You're looking at something from as many different angles as is possible all at once.
Well, not
And
really.
I think that that's what.
No, I was just gonna say
I
it.
think that's-
No, I'm just thinking like where he's coming from. I still think my quote overrules his point. How I think he forgets that we don't know shit. I mean, this is the most important thing to the humans being human, and in fact, it's anything. Not knowing
Well,
shit is
knowing
the
our
basic law.
limitations.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the basis of thermodynamics and entropy and shit. In order for you to gain information, require you to have no information, right? Your information that's gained is passed on to another system, right? So we're all in different little systems, all passing information and shit like that, like a transistor or in a computer circuit board or
Yeah.
whatever. So we're all a part of something. But when Pardo says, well, there could be a quantum field and quantum computers and all that stuff, well, that's all fine and dandy. But you have to admit the truth, and the truth is we don't fucking know. So it's speculation. We don't know what the universe is.
Sure.
So
Yeah, but what's your
speculate
point? Is your point
what
that we
it- what
shouldn't
it
discuss
does.
it until we actually know for sure? Is that your point? What's your
No,
point exactly?
no. The joy is we should recognize that we don't know, and that is the fundamental part of being alive, at least, right? The fundamental part of the universe is that there's momentum in what we don't know. Because if we did know it, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But the fact that we don't is the reason why we are. So what's
but-
more important in this aspect is the question more
Yeah,
important
but
than the
who's
answer more
arguing? Like,
important.
who's arguing that we
Well,
should or
humans
shouldn't
are.
know this, or that we? I mean, I'm not sure what this is. What the relevance of this
Well,
is.
it's the basis of quantum mechanics itself. Like I said before, if you are the measuring stick, right? How can you measure anything? Everything is measured according to us
So are you
because we are
saying
the ones
it's
observing the
futile? Are you
universe.
saying it's futile what we're trying to do, or that we shouldn't do it because
No,
it's better to
we
have
should
unknowns, or?
no, we should recognize what we're doing is futile. Yeah, what we should.
That
Yeah,
seems
but
like very defeatist. I don't like.
no. It's not defeatist. It's how we get to a better way of doing mathematics. That's the beauty of it. In fact, it's not me who said that. It's actually people from MIT and all these other places that actually said we need a different version of math because our math doesn't work. It's broken. If you go anywhere in the universe and apply any type of good physics, it breaks instantly.
Okay,
as soon
well,
as you
that's
get to a hard
exactly what
question.
Piro's trying to do. Is he's trying to come up with an explanation that
Quantum
accounts
mechanics
for
doesn't
what
solve
we
that
observe.
problem. We use quantum mechanics to fucking try and measure black holes. We still don't know what a black hole is.
No, well, that's
We still don't even
why
know
I was
matter
asked.
forms.
That's exactly why I was asking Piro. I don't even understand how this quantum, this probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics accounts for qualia. I don't understand the link there. Like, you kind of have to inject this this
An error.
woo-woo stuff into this other quantum world, like this notion of feeling, these qualia feelings. Because, I mean, in and of itself, when I think of quantum mechanics, I just think of, randomness, probabilistic behavior, that sort of thing. I don't think of, like, little bits of qualia just floating around in the ether. I don't think of that.
Okay, what is a qualia? What is a qualium? I'm not asking for the definition. I'm saying, what is it?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the question, right? We don't know. That's the hard problem of consciousness.
So I think that he just wants to use quantum mechanics to explain that.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the vibe I'm getting from him.
Right. So
he simply wants to say that there are other ways to perceive knowledge.
So it's kind of like a form of dualism. He's kind of suggesting that in this quantum world, there's this woo-woo consciousy stuff, this substance that is like solely, It's kind of like instead of invoking the supernatural, you're invoking the quantum world. It seems
not necessarily. Not
Well, you
necessarily. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to try and get emotions. Here he is. Try to insert emotions into science and watch what happens. But emotions are real. Emotions are what make us what we are. How do we explain what those things are?
Well, we explain them just by the very notion that, a computer will crash randomly. Why? Why does computer crash randomly? Because there's an error in the RAM or the memory or some shit, and it'll give you a blue screen. That's not woo. That's just an error in the code. You know, the error might be the very reason why you get emotions. You might feel one way, and feeling itself is only an accumulative.
No, but I would argue
The bottom line is that we
might
don't
be an
know.
I'm sorry to come in, but on what you're
I'm trying to
saying,
use that figuratively speaking, Akabad.
yeah. Well, I don't think that explains that it's an error. Doesn't explain the complex nature of the data, the emotional data we get, where we can size up a vibe in an establishment we've walked into, these things, and then and we do have to go by them. You listen to those feelings because there's information in that data set. It's not just an error. It's not an error code. It's not a 7.
Have you? Okay, then.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
I think I've got you, Pyro. I think I know what you're saying.
Can I ask you a question really quick, Paro, in the sense of what I think you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Have you ever misread someone's intentions before?
Of course, yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, so if therefore if the quantum thing is doing its job, you wouldn't.
No, that's not true.
Right.
Quantum computers are inherently give faulty answers, and
Yeah,
it's still running an algorithm which could be faulty.
So hold on a minute. So therefore, it's not a fault, is it?
No, but
It's a requirement. It's a requirement for it to give you an error.
it doesn't matter whether you call it a fault or not.
Listen to what I'm saying. The error itself would be a necessary part of the system that it's trying to explain to you. The problem with human
Fine.
beings is we want to conform
Yeah,
things to
it's
be
true.
our way.
Well, okay. Here's the thing that I.
That's
Well, you're like saying we could have evolutionarily co-opted some error, and now it's a part of the process. Fine, but I'm just saying that doesn't address this thing I'm bringing up, about which is the inherent complexity of this simple information we get wrong, and yet it's very complex information, and we handle it like it's a single thing. We don't handle it bit by bit. That's weird.
Well, it's not weird. It's thermodynamics, dude. Entropy made you. Work that shit out already. Entropy
made
what does
me?
entropy do?
Not sure about
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. I think I know
Well,
what you're
it
getting
did.
at.
No, actually, it did make you. Entropy made you. The ever
Made my
increasing,
body.
the ever increasing chaos created you.
I
That's a
think
fact.
that there's the people are talking past each other here because you're kind of like talking about different things. Let me see if I can offer a little bit of clarity here. So there is, and this goes back to this argument that you guys were having with Gary and Anakantavad and Hothliday, I think, was in on it, and Anakantavad was talking about teleological design, whereas Gary and I think Piro right now is basically talking about teleonomic design. So there are two different notions of design that talk about totally different things. So what Stizor, that's her name, right? Yeah, Stizor,
Yeah.
is talking about is like the universe inherently doesn't make any mistakes. It just does what it is. It does what it does. It is what it is, and there's no mistake in it. It's happening. It's doing what it has to do, right? And then when Piro says, "Oh, but it's inherent. It can make mistakes. Quantum mechanics is inherently faulty," and this and that. He's talking more with respect to teleonomic design. Like, let's say my eye has a certain teleonomic design. Its purpose is to see, not nobody designed it for the purpose of seeing, but that is, evolutionary speaking, that's the purpose of an eyeball, is to see, right? So if there is some crud in my eyeball that's preventing me from seeing, that is a quote-unquote error, right? I know, Steiser, you're going to say that there's no
I agree.
mistake,
I'm
but
agreeing with you. I'm going
from
with
a
it.
teleonomic perspective, it is an error in the
Yeah.
sense.
Okay.
I was
terms
all
of the
ready to trash
evolutionary-
you for saying you were going to lend clarity, but that was pretty
No,
clear.
I agree. I
That is
agree.
what I'm
The way you
saying,
put it,
where
I
I'm
agree
coming
with
from.
what he said. And if that's what you're saying, Pado and Vic's just kind of cleared it up, then okay, yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah,
part.
no, and usually I try to say that and it never comes across, but I'll just say, so you know, this is what I'm trying to say, is what
Okay,
Vic
that's
just
fine.
clarified. When I'm talking about there's meaning in the universe, I mean, I'm not a nihilist because I think the living creatures are creating meaning. So yeah, it's not teleological, that's
But I think we both agree
superstitious,
on that
but
one.
it is,
I think
there
we
is
both
obviously a telenomic phenomena.
About Piro. Piro, I'm curious about your supernatural, meaning the where you make a slight difference between the universe being quantum and the supernatural and theism. And I guess to Vic, I'm kind of curious of whether or not you have any allowances to theism. And the reason I mention that is because kind of an arising of something within the body, like let's say you don't stub your toe, but all of a sudden you kind of autonomically or automatically generated a new sensation that you're feeling in your body, a qualia, an emotion stems from that. And I'm wondering whether or not you would ever grant an externalization, a purpose, that the error code, the crud in your eye, is something theistically, quantum mechanically purposeful in a teleonomic sense, or not a teleonomic sense, but a kind of an a-teleologic sense, in that you're going to grant a purpose in a kind of a theistic platform, that you are being guided by something through that error cord, through that crud in the eye.
Yeah, no, I never shut myself off to any sort of explanation, right? So, but I do not form, I don't think rational people form rational beliefs merely on what's possible, right? Logically possible. They form beliefs around what is evident and
Possible.
probable, you know what I mean? Things that you have reason to believe, right?
No,
And I
you
don't
don't.
think
You
that at
don't even
this
need that.
moment, I don't think at this moment we have any reason to believe, reason to invoke some transcendental woo into quantum mechanics or the supernatural or anything like that. It doesn't add anything. All it does is basically raise more questions
Well,
and answers.
but Vic,
I think
you were criticizing Stizer for kind of like not questing into the ignorance.
I don't think he did,
opening.
Michael. I don't.
No,
I
I
don't
wasn't
think he did.
criticizing him. I was
Well, I mean,
I
not a
was
Just
explaining
putting
how
on
they
my
were
point.
talking
Criticizing, yeah, no,
about
it's
different
You know,
things.
the difference. There was a denotion of difference. And I guess what I'm saying is if there is an openness of conversation into the quantum, and granted you're saying a reasonable person would not do that, is that not just a maintenance of rationality? Is that not a paradigm manifold that you...
I'm just
I
saying,
mean, it is.
what do you gain by saying that you believe something to be true? When you say you believe something to be true, like what? Why can't you
It can be
just say,
quiet.
well, we don't know? Why do you have to like
Yeah.
take a position on something that you're in no real position
To
to
take.
know one way or the other?
Yeah. And that's like I said to
well,
Achenbad before, or Annie. It's like the not knowing part is the most beautiful part of it, really.
yeah, I mean, but it's
To
funny
me,
because I've
anyway.
been arguing that my whole life as a skeptic here, and now the skepticism has become more popular. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean you should just check out of every question. I mean, so for example, my answer is, I think this is an important problem in a lot of different domains of what is qualia, and is it really impossible to quantify qualia, right? And I think it is possible. But it's not going to be mechanical, traditional, first order logic, no matter
Well,
how many operations per second. That's just, I have reasons for thinking that, but and
But
so that's why I want to explain it, and why I want to say, hey,
well, all right.
if it's a quantum state, it is quantifiable. It's a physical matrix of, it's not infinite and so confusing. It's just
okay,
data in a certain form.
Pyro.
Okay, well, Piero, that's actually interesting then. So let me ask you, this kind of goes back to your AI, uh, the artificial feeling discussion with Gary, and I'm curious. So if someone did create a quote unquote sentient robot that passes the Turing test, it seems to feel, it exhibits all the same behavior that humans do. So by all accounts, as far as we can tell externally, from a third person perspective, this thing is a sentient organism. Now, let's suppose that the designers of this robot know for a fact that all the programming and machinery involved is mechanistic in nature. They didn't do anything fancy with quantum mechanics or quantum computing. It's just mechanistic. It's just a very sophisticated AI algorithm. Would you think that there's something more involved there, or would you? What would you?
I would suggest that my first of all, I would have to potentially just accept that it was possible to do with mechanics. I think though that I would suspect that, and I would look very hard for the edge cases. Just because a phone system acts like a human when it's doing tech support, in the next 10 years, that's not really, if a close inspection will show you that it's distinguishable. It's just like, you can have a little thing in a video game that looks like a life form, but if it was a scientific issue, you could make tests
No, but hold on.
the difference.
I just want to interject really
So
quick.
wait, let me finish. I'll finish. I'm sorry, I know I'm going the long-winded version. I don't need to, but so let me just finish. The issue is that I would suspect that it's a little bit convincing, but there'd be ways to discriminate. But if there was no way to discriminate, I might have to face the fact that it can be done with classical Turing machines, which I just don't think. But if it was demonstrated, of course I'd accept it.
But Piero, here's the thing.
I used to think it was possible.
here's the thing. You talk about finding these edge cases, and the thing is, when you actually put a human being in the lab, right, and you run him through like an fMRI machine, and and you have him like make a quote unquote conscious decision between one button and another, and then the scientists in the room over can actually predict what that person is going to do before he's even consciously aware of his decision. You know, that kind of shows you right there that it's a mechanistic process. It's not, this consciousness thing comes after the fact. It's not contingent on the act itself. It's something that it's an effect that your body produces after it's already decided to do whatever it's going to do.
Okay, see, I don't accept that your id, this feeling you have of the so-called conscious mind, I don't accept that that really is the whole of consciousness. I think your brain and body is conscious on its own. You don't have access to all that information.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna just say this very quickly. I think putting consciousness on a pedestal and human beings and our awareness on a pedestal is a bad idea. It just is. Okay, we are biased by our very existence. Okay, that's the only thing you should understand. We are biased by our very existence. The moment you're born, everything that comes into your head is already projecting you to go a certain way. Now, the human race does that as a whole, but yet we kind of leave out the whole we don't know shit, which is kind of ironic if you ask me.
Stizor,
I like how we're talking about qualia.
in the phenomenon of a qualia, or of a qualium, or whatever, is
information only going one way?
In other words,
I see the color red.
I see the color red, okay? It's coming at me. Am I adding to that perception of redness?
Of course you are, and this is the entire point that I was trying to make about the whole entropy dig, is that we think we are, you know, machines in the sense of what Pyro was saying. Like,
I'm agreeing with you.
I don't. That's the thing, Stizer. I don't think anybody's in a position to answer this. When you say, "Of course it does," I don't think that we know that for sure.
I think we already got the basis of the physics worked out.
Consciousness could certainly be a one-way thing, something that happens as an effect and doesn't actually inform. It doesn't loop back into the system.
It does. It does loop back.
Hold on. We have to receive information through our senses.
No, hold on. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
We have to receive our information through the senses, which automatically garbles it.
But wait, hold on a second. Let's imagine you create this mechanistic robot that appears to be sentient, it appears to feel all these things, right? But then you find out that it's, let's just say we know I don't know how we're going to know this, but let's say we just know that it doesn't actually experience consciousness, right? So everything that it does, of course, loops back into its programming and it behaves according to that program, but it never actually feels it. But you see how that wouldn't be distinguishable from us. You know, so this consciousness thing could be extraneous.
No, but that's the point I'm trying to make.
It couldn't be distinguishable from it, except for on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. It's only
there is such a thing as internal stuff. Okay, do you know how you manipulate your arms? I'm not asking you
Scientifically how you do it.
How do you manipulate your
own arms? How do you get your brain to do that? Don't explain to me the way the nervous system works. I want you to explain to me what you are actually doing when you say I want to move my arms and they move.
How do we?
You don't know.
How do we? You mean how do we delude ourselves into thinking that we
don't? No, we don't. I'm sorry.
No.
No, I know what I do. I know what I do.
No. These are things
you don't.
Well, you aren't even listening. Maybe I do. You don't have.
Hold on. I want to go back to the. I want to
actually do that.
No, I want to really raise
this. We actually do what?
Consciously manipulate our arms.
Hold on, Vic. Before you answer this, I just want to really get to the point that no one was born inherently knowing how to tie their shoelace. Okay, you learned how to tie your shoelace. You learned this given act. We are in a system. An open system, if you will. I know we say it's a closed system, but that's bullshit. It's an open system. It just is, okay? The universe wouldn't exist if it was a closed system. That's just a fucking fact, even though people tell you otherwise. The fact is that everything you know that you think is being made by you is actually came from something else. The reason why the sky is blue because someone told you it's fucking blue. Everything you know today is being told to you by somebody else or is learned by your
Like your
own
senses.
shit. Yes. So it's a two-way street. The universe doesn't
Yeah.
do me versus you in the sense like, we are separated. We are a part of the same system. And that's why I keep telling people like fucking stupid Amendum, pardon my French there, that he needs to realize we are not separate. We're not in a bubble. We are
Yeah.
based on the same physics, the same mechanics as everything else. Now, I agree with Pato in the sense like, well, there could be some quantum effect going on. Why is that? Because we know what quantum mechanics does. So obviously it would be applicable to us. But that's not the only thing. It's just the only thing that we've ever reached. And if you go beyond quantum mechanics, you go back to the Turing machine, because the Turing machine is the only thing that could create a quantum machine. You should know that because you're fucking one of them. It's scale, baby, scale.
So,
And
Anaconda,
again, what? Sorry.
So,
Go
Anaconda, the thing is, obviously, I'm not saying I have a complete explanation, but also you were saying, forget the outside explanation about the neurons and the impulses. How do you experience it? Well, I think we're introspective enough. I'm introspective enough that there is an answer to that. That, again, it's not a complete explanation, but you get a feeling of moving your arms, and you visualize a picture of them moving, not necessarily a visual picture. It can be the feeling of the air on your skin. You visualize that, and your body somehow reacts. So from the conscious, whatever the little part of the brain that is conscious, it's not the whole conscious, that's how it takes part. It takes part through organizing visualizations, and then those visualizations evidently get spread out to the brain that execute parts of the visualization. And it's all done with feelings again. It's a gestalty thing. You imagine your body in a new situation all at once. You don't go finger move, elbow, no part of the brain does that.
Precisely.
And again, this is a quantum style of process. That's how a quantum computer would do it. It would go from complex number, not simple number, not scalars and vectors, but this kind of coherent, complex infinite number.
You're looking for the word randomness.
It's not randomness.
It's random.
It is.
No, it's a higher dimension.
No, I'm sorry, but look up the word random in math, and it's very logical actually. People get confused with the word random.
Okay, well then it is random. If you
say the word chaos, say the word chaos to somebody, they get scared. Oh, chaos.
But what the complexity is that this is a number that can have contradictions. It can have more than one answer at the same time. There's an inherent complexity that you don't have with a bitmap. No matter how many megapixels are in it, it is a coherent single thing. It doesn't have multiple pictures in it at once.
Yeah, and if you look at the mathematics of, I don't know, let's see, the Illustrator image, which would be, I don't know, a TIFF maybe, or whatever, doesn't matter, a PNG. The point is, there's different algorithms to get different respects. A JPEG is not the same thing as an image that you would make in Illustrator. Illustrator uses mathematical algorithms to give you a smooth edge no matter how much you zoom in. A bitmap won't. A bitmap will pixelate. I should know. I do graphic design. It's just different algorithms. So, does one algorithm do one thing? Yes. Does the other algorithm do the other thing? Yes. But they're both using the same principle, which is mathematics.
How does any of that lead to qualia, though? That's what I'm saying. Like, you invoke quantum mechanics. You talk about, it leads to many things. It's a gestalt of stuff. It's like, yeah. And how does that lead to qualia?
Because the input, because when you have quantum, here's why. Because the quantum algorithms, their input are complex states like that. Instead of giving it, a string and it's supposed to parse it in two, there's these. It operates on coherent quantum states. Right, so you have a system that you keep in a quantum state, you feed some information in there, then you transform it to another quantum state, and you're going through all these transforms without bringing it out of the coherent state, and the data, the inputs, it looks more like a qualia than it looks like you could model qualia with it in a way you can't model qualia with a vector.
Binary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You keep using the word quantum state as if it's got no value as a 1 or a 0. You're wrong.
No, I'm talking about the state of a whole system, not just a 1 or 0 with multiple bits in it.
What system? A qubit is a 1 and a 0.
I'm still not seeing the link. I mean, you're just adding a whole bunch of stuff and then saying, okay, that somehow leads to qualia, but you haven't really established
basically,
that
I don't see there's a very high standard of there is no other explanation except for that it's competing with, except for this idea that we just need more megaflops and we'll simulate a human being that way. Right, so what is the, there is no other answer. I'm searching for an answer. I believe the qualia have to reduce to physics. Therefore, they have to reduce to a mechanical, in some sense, mechanical
That's like
system.
comparing a bunch of religions and saying because this religion seems to explain it better than this other fairy tale over here, so we're just going to go with this religion.
Well, how do you
the
think
point is that you have no evidence to go with any of them. You have no reason, no logic.
I have no evidence for which part that there's quantum mechanical processes.
You have no logical reason to somehow attribute qualia and consciousness to quantum mechanics. You're just not in a position to say that.
I'm theorizing,
hypothesizing,
because
sure,
of the similarity in the structure and the lack of similarity in our current analytic systems.
No, the only thing that's lacking in your hypothesis there is time. I mean, come on, we don't suddenly pop out of a womb and develop this fucking innate skill to come up with opinions.
Do you see a substantive difference between your hypothesis here, where this qualia exists in this quantum world, versus, say, the supernatural?
Yeah, totally. What do you mean? I'm reducing our experience of psychology to the physical. So yeah, I see a big difference. I see your criticism as well, but you have to understand. I mean, I am critical of this, whatever this 0.0 or whatever the thing is, where the computers and the mega flops are supposed to get to a certain point automatically. At that point, we're going to have intelligent computer.
You
That's
mean
not going to
the
happen.
humanism thing, right?
It just strikes me as
okay, Vic.
It strikes me as very transcendental and very woo-woo. But yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that's woo-woo at all.
Well, but I'm telling you, the computer scientists working in that area, that's what they think. They think that there is no consciousness on the inside. There is no heart problem. They'll simulate consciousness and it'll be over. And I disagree with that very strongly. So I'm looking elsewhere.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That see, what you have to do is you have to understand that even a qualia is not just something that happens in and of itself. Something has to be conscious of it. Something has to be experiencing it. In fact, it is the experience of that thing in and of itself. What direction does experience, like the contributing factors in an experience?
Okay,
there's information coming in and there's interpretation going out. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, it is.
So you've got to deal with both sides of that, and that's what Pyro's trying to do.
Yeah, I know he's trying to do, but I think the synapses part he's forgetting as well. A lot of people today who believe in computers think a computer is like a brain. It's not. There's fucking gaps there that are so huge. It's just unbelievable. But simple people think a computer chip is just like a brain. No, it's fucking.
But what I'm saying is, though, I'm addressing Vic's point. There is no woo-woo to this. This is all perfectly reasonable. What he's saying. He's simply saying that our experiences may be on an order that are in two completely different types. There's the rational, and then there's the Gestalt way of seeing things.
If I can jump in on this, Vic, I'm concurring with Antikantavad, and to say woo-woo is an interesting description to throw out there, but keep in mind the very experience of trying to maintain interpretation and rationality is a qualia, meaning you have a manifold trying to interpolate, organize, and rationalize what's going on for some quest for truth, which a lot of us have. And so I'm kind of reeling back to your question, or earlier, like where you were mentioning religions, and I was thinking, it's interesting how rationalists always want to quest for truth as opposed to using, appealing to literature. Appealing to what I guess you'll default to woo-woo. And I'm just trying to concur with Antikantavad and say, well, if you're going to call it woo-woo, then even the mechanism of trying to maintain rationality is a phenomena that is, well, why not call it woo-woo?
Just because I call it woo-woo doesn't mean it's wrong, right? There
Well,
might
but
actually be a God out there, right?
no. This
Just
isn't
because you
God.
have no reason to believe it doesn't mean that I'm saying,
No.
it's impossible.
This is
Well,
I'm
not
just
God.
saying it's totally fine to hypothesize about these things. Just like I don't fault Gary for trying to come up with pet
Yeah.
physics for his pet
Right.
physics theories that seem to solve whatever.
Right. So, and as a
No shit.
philosophical system, there's an impact of what I'm saying, which is that when people so often are acting like they can't change their feelings, that you feel how you feel, you want something, you want something. No, maybe that desire that you feel for that woman is just another kind of computational process in your mind. It comes up with this feeling of desire. You can run your feelings through the processor again, and it might be more
Yeah, but
well
that's
informed.
no, but that's
So the point is, the practical impact is getting control of our emotions. Instead of thinking they just come from nowhere and they're
Bingo.
the source of our being, we start with these feelings
no.
and they
I'm
are what
sorry.
they
Brilliant,
are and we
Myra.
deal with them.
Sorry, no, I'm
It's
sorry.
just,
I'm just going.
it's just one output of one data
So wait.
No,
process.
I'm sorry. This is the whole crux. This is the crux of my argument. What's the point of this control shit? You're like, well, I need to control this. I need to understand this.
Yeah, I
Do you
want to
want to
control my
answer?
own
Okay,
brain.
I'll
I'm
tell you
sorry.
why, Stizer. I'll tell you why.
Go
Would you
on.
like to? Would you like to be able to control the quality of your experiences?
No,
No.
no. I like mine fast and furious and fucking obscure as possible and in
Yeah,
my
but
face.
Yeah, I
Do
doubt
you know
that's a
why
that.
that
form
is?
of control.
Because that's life.
That's a form of control.
Because
That's what
I'm
you
not.
want.
No,
It
you see
is.
the
That's a
thing is
form of
because
control.
That's a
no,
form of
because you
control.
see
You
the
go out of
thing
your
is
way to
no,
get that life.
it's not a form of control. You see the
Yeah,
thing
it
is
is. You control freak.
I'm not disillusioned. I'm not disillusioned by the fact that I think I know. I'm the most honest person you'll come across in the sense that I fully embrace the fact that I don't know. As soon as you
I
start to
know.
think that you do know, you're probably fucking wrong. And in
That's
fact, I
fine,
don't.
and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
What
so
Pyro is attempting to do is
with
he's attempting
speculative
to explain
ideas.
how we perceive anything.
But
Like
why
he's
do you need?
Pyro is examining our
no, but
tools.
listen to what you're saying. Need. These are things that people require because they're not quite happy with the situation they find themselves in. I mean, the best quote, second to the other one with the quantum mechanics, was this, John Adams' quote: "Is the universe was made and man was angry." I mean, this is the whole entire quest of the human race is to find out why they exist. You do understand that, right? That is the basic
No,
principle of man's
no,
quest. Yes, it is. No, I'm
I don't
sorry.
agree
Yes,
with
it
that.
is.
No,
Every
I can
single
generalize
goal
more than
the
that.
human
See,
race has ever tried to figure out is because we don't know why the fuck we exist. That's a fact. And if
There
you
may be no reason.
embrace that fact
No.
and understand the principles of it, maybe get further that
No,
we
but
don't
see,
need to
this
know
is
as much
another
as we do.
ramification of the system I'm proposing. See, if it's true that we're processing the universe this way, then what we're doing is we are changing entropy into structured information.
No, it's
So
order, disorder. Fucking hell, you made the yin
finding
yang
out
sound.
Yeah.
China, for fuck's sake.
finding out things about like where we came from or anything we find out is just a symptom of that process. The general process I'm saying is exactly not even finding stuff out, but just organizing it. Life goes around organizing the universe. This survival fact has to do with evolution, obviously, but what it does while it survives is pump entropy, which means organize information.
No, you just got to understand the bigger picture, dude. You talked about that dude or whatever his fucking name was. You got to understand the bigger picture.
Big
If you look at entropy, life's job is to create order from disorder. That's its job.
Well, that's what I'm
Nothing
saying.
else. There's nothing else there.
Well, that's what it does.
That's exactly the only thing that it can do. I mean,
Yeah.
look at if you used to look at the universe in a couple of trillion years, maybe there's going to be fuck all there. The only way there's going to be another Big Bang is if life creates it, because nothing would be aware of a Big Bang. A Big Bang was obviously created by a living being that knew it was fucked from the get-go.
What?
Really?
Isn't it the
No.
case?
How'd you
Wait,
get that from?
hold on.
Why else would life be in the universe other than make a new universe?
So you're a theist? I didn't realize that.
I'm not a
Either.
theist. I'm an atheist. For fuck's sake. In fact, I'm not even an atheist.
But you
I'm a fucking
believe in
atheist.
sort of some living Spinozan universe, though?
No, I believe in replication. That's what the universe does best. It replicates itself.
So
It
you're
just
saying
does.
some sentient,
Every sun in the universe is a sun. Are you
so
fucking?
some alien created the universe?
I couldn't give a fuck
itself.
what created it. I don't really care.
Well, I
The
mean, that
fact is
just
that
seems like what you just
Well, no,
kind of
yeah,
said,
maybe it's
right?
an
no,
offhand comment, but you caught our attention here.
the implications for life being aware. Well, let's think of it this way, right? I'm going to put it very simply. A rock is aware that's a rock.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's the universe we live in. You live in a universe that's basically a rock. It's made from atoms that aren't aware of themselves but create you, and you're aware of the atoms.
Yeah, I think
that's a bit
the
weird.
wrong words. At best, you could say that there's some sort of feeling, even, or you can't really say.
No, I'm not
What's on the receiving end of the awareness?
No, I don't like the
Well,
whole.
like you could say it has a temperature in it, right? So you
No,
could
'cause you get
say
wound
by
then.
analogy that
I
that
just stick to this.
it's got this state of like you can imagine there's a qualia of something. How could you say it understands though? That just seems like the wrong way to put that.
It doesn't understand. It doesn't understand anything. It's just
Right.
that's what's going to happen.
Or you didn't say understand. You said it knows what it's like to be a rock. I just say not the word know.
No,
I mean, it's
well, okay then.
it's
It's
a
aware
shorter
that
line like that. It's
a
more
rock is aware
existential.
that's a rock. How is that
Right.
even possible? Well,
Yeah.
the fact is, well, maybe the premise of the question's wrong. Maybe the rock isn't a rock after all, and this is the problem
Yeah,
that I
that's
find
true.
in physics.
Identity.
Exactly. Now, if you look at the universe, who said it was a rock, right?
Yeah,
Everything
I
that
know.
we know is inanimate, right? As far as we're aware, it's always just rocks and stuff that
We
can
impose
see.
identity on
Yeah.
these things.
Exactly. So if we change the parameters of our understanding of what the universe is, then it changes the parameters of what we are and for our purpose, or I wouldn't
Yeah.
say purpose because that's a bit like theistic, but our role in said universe, like, you know,
Or what our position is.
their job, even though they're not having, even though they don't have a job, they're just still there. That's like the same as life. Life is a component of the universe. It doesn't require any purpose or any of that stupid shit. It just is. Now we need to figure out, well, why the fuck would you have life in a universe anyway? Why would it be that case? And if we can figure out why the case is, then we can probably solve the problem of what the fuck the problem is, in the sense of why we want to search for the fucking answer, which I don't think there is one, because that's a pretty stupid
Well,
thing.
I'll
In my
get back to what Tiro is saying. I think, okay, yeah, now information is coming in and it's being interpreted. And the interpretation you're saying takes place on two, perhaps many more levels. There's the normal logical way, and then you're talking about a Gestalt way. And these can be operating simultaneously, if I understand you correctly. Now, what you've got is you've got two sort of streams of perception, not two streams of information coming in. You've got two streams of information, sort of, or perceptions going out. So you're assimilating information on two completely different levels at the same time. And I think, if I understand you correctly, Pyro, you're saying the emotions are the Gestalt thing.
Yes, they're related to the Gestalt. There's obviously more to it than that. And by the way, your mic is awesome.
Oh, okay, that's much better. Good. All right. Well, then there's so the other thing that I would point out then is, or I would go back to that information coming in, information going out. So information is coming in from the outside, and we are actually complicit in our own qualia, because we are actually influencing their ultimate nature by the information that's going out, i.e. our interpretations.
Exactly.
No,
So
but once
it's-
again, you're presupposing that. You're presupposing that it's not merely in a one-directional effect.
No,
He's
I'm
not
not
saying it is.
presupposing that, because
He's not
we can
saying
only
that.
know things from the outside, and something has to be in here to know anything.
Yeah. It's
What is
predetermined.
it that knows that which is known?
Nothing.
Maybe the question itself is just the wrong way to look at it.
No, the question
No,
itself is important.
Okay,
The question is
if information.
You're presupposing a dualistic.
No, I'm not, because a perception has to be perceived, or it isn't a perception.
You're saying that there's something in here floating around perceived.
No, I'm not.
That is dual.
No, I am not. I am saying that something is on the receiving end of those qualia.
Which is what?
Which is the
You said something. You said something that is not the material body, right?
Wait a second. If
Yes.
something is not on the receiving end of the qualia, then the qualia cannot exist as such, because in order for them to be qualia, they have to be experienced by something.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna disagree with Vic. Yes, I will say yes. There is something before you are born that inherent that is inherently given before you're born into this wacky shit we call reality.
I don't think that there
Yeah.
is a you.
No, it
I
is.
think
It's
this
called
notion of a you
Okay,
is
if there's no you,
illusory.
then
It's called
what
physics.
what is perceiving that which is perceived then?
That's like coming out my mum's fucking vagina and saying the moon's made of cheese. No, the is shit
but-
that exists
but
before you
what
come
is
out
it?
your womb.
Could you answer that, Vic? What is it that is perceiving that which is perceived? What is
It's
on
an
the receiving
illusory.
end of the qualia?
I think it's just the wrong. It's an effect. We
then-
are the effect. The consciousness itself is the effect. It's a
I
feeling. It's a
understand
feeling
that.
that is projected out.
But what is it that's
Essentially,
making the error? What is it that's making the error of assuming that it exists, or that it has a certain nature? Something has to be in there on the receiving end of all of this.
Yeah, it's called physics.
Well, whatever. It's called consciousness, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you're everything, all of that. You are that. What we call you is your body, your mechanistic processes that go in it.
What I'm talking about qualia
and
here.
the conscious effect.
I'm talking about qualia here. What is on the receiving end of the qualia? There has to be something there, or they're not qualia.
Well, on to concept.
You're kind of
qualia
assuming
is
that
an
it is a something that's received and not simply something that is expressed.
Yeah, the phenomena of the qualia happening could generate this feeling of consciousness.
Yeah, but again, we're just passing the buck here, farther and farther along to infinite regression.
There is no thing receiving it. What you think
then
is
there's no qualia. Then there's
So
no
is
qualia.
qualia an object
By
is a reaction to
its very
stimuli?
nature, a perception has to be perceived.
Well, hang on.
No, it doesn't. That's just language. You're just saying that verbs need subjects. No, the fact is you could be and probably are a series of qualia, and the timeline that you in your mind can draw through those points of qualitative experience, you think of that as a thing, but it's no more a thing than,
I agree. But I'm not even talking about a stream of qualia here. I'm talking about an individual experience. If something is not experiencing an experience, it isn't an experience.
I understand what you're saying, Anaconda, and it's certainly intuitive.
The qualia, the reaction to the stimuli. You know what I mean? You're kind of you're almost saying as if it's a separate object. This qualia.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying. I'm not even saying I know what it is. But what I'm saying is, it's something. It's a bit of an elephant in the room here, and it's something that we can't really come to grips with. But again, in order for something to be perceived, there has to be a perceiver.
Well, Andy, my sensation is more like a garden hose. It's almost as if, and granted, this is metaphorical, and I still understand the dilemma of what you're trying to reach, but it's almost as if you're trying to argue for spirit or like the end of the garden hose. There's got to be a
No, I'm not.
water.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to argue for anything. I'm trying to show that there's a big gap in all of this.
So you're arguing for the hose itself as recipient, and I only use a hose because it's timeline. It's
let's say that I wouldn't even argue that the hose has a recipient. What I'm saying is, for an experience to be an experience, it has to be experienced by something. It's as simple as that.
Well, I think more accurately, it's something needs to produce that effect, right?
But still something has to experience it. Something has to experience it.
But this is the point. The universe made you, not the other way around. I don't know why
I
people
didn't
are so
say
stupid.
that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm
I'm
talking
not
at
talking
the
about you, Adam,
experiential
I'm
level.
just saying that.
But I mean, this is the whole problem of consciousness, right? On account of it, I understand what you're saying. It's very intuitive, right? But that's what most people are saying is the illusion of consciousness. We experience ourselves as a separate identity, this little thing floating around.
Wait a minute. No, I didn't even say a separate identity floating around. We may. I may be.
Feels like, though, right?
That's what it feels like. Yes, but what I'm saying is, what is that illusion visited upon? What is it that's making the error?
I don't know. I mean, that's the.
We're in
There is no
agreement.
error. There is no error.
No, but
This is I said this before.
If I knew
said
the
this,
answer to that, then I would have
No,
solved the hard problem of consciousness.
I know, but
I-
that's what I'm saying. I'm simply pointing out that huge gap in all of this.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there is no error though. I mean, that's the point that I said.
I didn't say it was an error either.
No, I'm not saying you did. I'm saying I was trying to say that I said this to Gary. The universe doesn't make mistakes. It just doesn't. Where do people
Wow.
get this error shift from? It's just fucking mind bending.
It
The
depends
No,
on
it's
the
like the
concept.
teleonomic thing. You just have to
Yes.
remember
What?
our argument.
What?
It's a mistake with reference to what we
Yeah,
wanted.
but
Yeah, you're talking about two different
teleonomy is
things.
just a species
Well,
of
this-
infinite regression.
Well, this is what Vic had pointed out before, but we just go in these circles. But it's worth noting that Vic had, a pretty good issue there about what we mean when we're saying errors, right?
Yeah, but I just thought that point out because it was going back there.
Yeah, no, it's fair
Context.
enough to also point out that then we might over exploit this concept of error and forget that ultimately we also agreed that there is a teleologically free world and error is a subjective thing. We do have,
Yeah.
so you can keep pointing that
Well,
out.
no.
No one's
know, I mean-
arguing. No one's arguing that, but it was getting to the
Yeah.
point where you have to, if you're gonna go down the really like, is the universe X, Y, and Z? You have to include that, okay? But if you're gonna go down universe is X, Y, and Z plus fuck knows what, then you can do the whole qualia shit. But if you're gonna admit that your axiom is based on a premise, then you have to agree with me. But you're saying that my axiom is the truth, and there is no truth to your axiom. That's a fact. Your axiom is a premise. There's no truth behind what you say. It's a hypothesis, is what.
Yeah, and I never heard him saying anything otherwise.
Yeah,
It
I'm not
is-
trying.
it
I'm
is-
not trying to say you're full of shit, Pat. I'm just saying how it reacts in the rest of the universe. And I agree with the whole quantum mechanical thing because I do believe that it's a bit weird. But at the same time, like I don't know if that's the truth, and I'm never gonna say that it is, unless I know the truth, which is probably
Assuming
never
there is a
happened in
truth
my
out there to
entire
learn.
lifetime. Yeah, I don't believe in the truth as an axiom because
Yeah.
that's bullshit, really. By any scientific
So
method.
that's where qualia, consciousness, and quantum come together. You see how it works now, Vic? Like, you see at least the line of reasoning that got us here?
It's a
It doesn't-
difficult question. It's a very complicated issue, but I think fundamentally that what happens is your body works in a mechanistic fashion. It produces certain effects, and then that gets interpreted a certain way by your body, by that mechanism, and it feels like qualia. I don't know, how to describe it, how to explain it, but
Well,
Yeah, I know. But it
in
feels
Pado's
to
case-
something. Something
well,
feels
yeah,
something.
to the mechanism itself, the thing that's producing the effect itself. It's a feedback thing, right? It kind of
No,
feeds back.
now you've got your two mirrors facing each other, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Sort of, yeah. Like it
Okay, well,
produces that
even
feeling of
that,
consciousness, then that conscious feeling itself somehow loops back into the system because it experiences it.
It
It has to.
produces a conscious feeling. Okay, then it would also have to produce something to feel that feeling. So something is there now.
But that thing is the thing that produces it in the first place. Your
It-
body,
no,
your
I'm not
brain.
talking about in time here. I'm not talking in terms of what I'm saying is something has to experience that
Seconds.
which is experienced.
Why are you solidifying a singularity on the Kandavad? I mean, it's kind of interesting that you keep saying something, or
Because
singular.
he doesn't know. He's not
Use
trying to
whatever
explain that
word
he
you
doesn't know.
like.
He's just saying.
Whatever it is, there's something, someone, some things, plural. Maybe it's just an it or a they or whatever. I don't know. I have no idea what it all is. But what I'm saying is something is on the receiving end of all this, and not only that, it's projecting out into that too.
I know, but the configuration of whatever makes up our consciousness. That I mean, I listen to Vic talk. It's our body. This is where I ground it. Okay, it's either our body or it's an abstract of the mind.
It's both. No, it's both.
Yeah, this is what I mean by
Both.
it's both, then it's a multitude.
Well, that's where Pado's point comes into the quantum mechanics thing, because quantum
Yeah,
mechanics says
yeah.
it's both, and
Yeah.
this is where I can agree with Pado.
It's
The
not
whole
both
totem
either,
collapse
it's
thing.
two.
It is a both, right? But I don't think that explains. I mean, we get into the infinite regression like fucking. Pardon my French. What Ahmed, you get into the infinite regression. It's like just because you say, well, quantum mechanics explains this. Well, what explains quantum mechanics?
Yeah.
You know,
Bingo.
it's infinite regression again, and I think it's if
I don't think it has to be an infinite regression. I mean, I think
well, no, it just will
most
inherently. That's
most
what it will
physicalist
do.
materialists would agree. I think that the that the material, that the physical world always existed in some form, right? And that's
Well,
just
no, it
it. There
didn't, and
was
this
no
is the point.
creator. That quantum vacuum, whatever you want to call it, always was always there.
Yeah,
It
but we
has
don't know
taken.
that. That's an assumption. This is the point. It's an assumption. I mean, when we say
That's
it,
fine.
it was always there, but that only refers to our reality and our existence in this universe. I mean, if you listen to some theoretical physicists, this is only one of
Yeah,
many.
but again,
This
we
is endless.
form beliefs based on what we think is likely. It's based on what we know, right?
Yeah, which is Oxfam's race are the most
Stuff that we
simplest,
don't know.
obviously there. But that still doesn't explain why the hell we try and figure out what we're doing. I mean, is the fact that we
I'm
question
still not
the
understanding like
quantum.
what your overall point is with you keep going back to that, but is it yeah
Because
you
it's
don't
so important.
you disagree with the inquiry itself that we shouldn't even be exploring these issues? What do
No,
you?
no, I would fundamentally say that our emotive response to questioning is to find the answer when actually the thing that guides us is the question itself. I
Okay.
think
Yeah,
I think
I
I
can
think
see that.
I think we're missing a trick. I think we've been looking for the wrong thing or looking at the wrong thing. I think all this time human beings have been going, "What's the answer?" When in fact is, why the fuck are we asking in the first place?
That's
Here's the
right.
problem.
Okay, so
Why are
then
we
you are
asking?
suggesting that we shouldn't be questioning anything or
No, no,
exploring.
no, no. Never said that. I'm just saying, what's more important, the
Yeah,
question
I think he's
itself or
saying
the
don't
answer?
get bogged down in tiny little minutiae of the whole thing.
Yeah. We should
That's
understand
what
that
I
we
think.
exist. That's fine. We exist. Okay. Now, what are we gonna do about it? You know, instead of
Yeah.
going, well, we exist. Let's find the fucking reason why we do. It's like, well, that's gonna take a
Well,
long ass
See,
time.
see,
I
G-
like where
Gary,
we've
Well,
Gary
gone
is
here,
used
so
you
to.
guys.
what?
You guys, it's time for some closing remarks or something. I think you
All
got
right.
to a closing remark there, Stizor, because I'm going to have to go, and unfortunately, it's not easy to leave this open. Otherwise, I'd let you just keep it as a room. But
Well, if you
so, if
can,
anybody wants
make
to
someone a mod.
summarize or anything, I thought it was very good.
I loved it.
And Vic,
Yeah.
I really appreciated. Well, everybody, but Vic, I think you did add some clarity at some key points, which I appreciate. So.
Well, my closing
Well,
remarks.
if I make someone a mod, what's going to happen? And I leave the room, it'll really?
Yep. But
Okay.
what it'll do is it'll be offline, but everybody will get to stay in the room.
Okay, I'll do that.
Somebody had a closing remark.
I don't know. Just give it to someone who's gonna stay. I mean, I'm in the UK. It's only 12 o'clock. I've got nothing to do,
I
so
just
someone give
gave
it
it
to
to
me. Or
you and Vic and
I can
Anakana.
vibe. Yeah.
I'm actually checking out myself, so. But thank you.
Oh, well,
Okay.
there's
I'm gonna head out
still
too.
And Michael.
No, you don't give it to me. Because I got to go. But
Yeah.
I
Well, I was just giving
my,
it to anybody.
my closing remark was since I think you position this as illusions are real. I don't know if that's what it was called. But
Illusions
when we
exist.
hit that point, I think we got to the title of the video.
Quite
Oh,
so.
thank you. So nice of you to say. I hope so.
Isn't it nice how when like Gary leaves the room, it like that whole clusterfuck goes away, and we
Yeah.
can actually communicate and talk intelligently about different subjects
You
without.
know,
Yeah.
I had
But we
high
can't be
hopes at
sure.
the beginning.
We can't
I
be
had
sure
high
you
hopes at the
didn't leak
beginning.
it out of us, and because it's like,
I just
oh,
think people just give each other time to speak, which is nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Gary's a poster boy for wasted potential.
Yeah. You know what? He's very
gosh, I'm Gary
he's
now.
smart.
Okay,
But,
I'm leaving.
this way.
Okay.
All right.
All right, bye, you
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
talking
It
with
was
you all.
awesome.
All right.
Yeah,
Bye.
if you guys keep this open, it'll all be interesting.
Yeah,
See
I'll keep it open.
if it streams or what. Okay, bye.
Alright.
Take care.
Tabs on apparel. Alright, but still. Oh god, it's dropped down to like 2, 3. Who's the other guy there? Who was that? Informy and Luca. And Paul the Hoof.
No, Paul the Hop.
Oh, Paul the Hoff. Oh, as in like the Hoff.
Well, it's
Even
the
though you got
beginning
a
of my
boss
last
picture
thing.
there. No, I just like the picture that you got going there. It's a pretty cool little animation picture thingy. Jano, you guys didn't really speak. And Luca, if you want to speak, Luca. I guess,
Luca.
pronunciation. Yeah, if you want to speak, feel free, dude. Or type, I don't know.
No, just listening in. I was wondering where that guy was, and every time I see him, he's always in a bad mood.
Dude, Gary, yeah.
Yes.
He's just so passionate about like wanting to kill the world.
He reminds me a little of my grandfather, that you would say you understand, but he couldn't believe that you could understand.
Yeah, he's like one of them angry like racists. I don't know. I mean, I like the guy, right? As much as you try and like him, he just rages at you anyway. So, yeah, you just got to give him a free pass sometimes. But you see the way he went mental before. That was just.
He always goes mental.
That was funny. I know. If anybody's watching and wants to jump in for the last maybe 10, 15 minutes, I don't know how long this thing's gonna last for. Feel free. The link is actually below in the live. Go to Pado's channel, and it should be on there somewhere. Somewhere. I've got no idea where. Even though I clicked on it, I've still got no idea where. And just give your thoughts on whether you think like you know. Well, what's your thoughts on existence and quantum mechanics and all that scientific wacky stuff we was talking about? And if you can't join us for the next one, I don't know when it's going to be. It's probably next Sunday. So for me, it's 12 o'clock. I think for people in America, it's probably 7-ish.
Well, I'm in Denver. It's 5.
There you go. So, yeah.
And I'll be going to see the Avengers again.
Oh, really? You're going twice?
Yep. Well, I went with a friend last night, and my son wants to go today.
Well, I think it's worth watching twice. I will say that. Just
I'm buying the Blu-ray because they're going to be adding stuff.
Yeah. And welcome back, Hook, by the way.
It's just showing up. It's showing live. It's still showing up on. It's still showing up on the YouTube page.
It should still go for about. I think it's 6 minutes if the host leaves, and then it goes to off air. So you got 6 minutes, guys, or something like that, if you want to be live. And if you want to join anyway on the post show, whatever it's called, feel free to join. It should be here, but it won't be live after 6 minutes. But the link is there, and all that good stuff. So it's the same topic or general topic, I guess. Or whatever. I don't know. Well, Hook, what's your thoughts? Because you didn't really speak much. So
Well,
if you want to give your thoughts, feel free.
Consciousness is, to me, is of the brain, of course, and it's just a emergent property of the neural net. And
Yeah, just like being alive.
And I think it's always people want it to be more because I think they want to be more.
Yeah. No humility whatsoever. You know what? I kind of agree with what you're saying there, Paul. Actually, I think people aren't happy with just being existing. They want it to be more than it is.
Well, they want to be related to a god
or a computer.
Well, people have different ideas of what a god is, right? I know a lot of scientific people who are very theistic in their nature, but don't believe in God. But they want the answer to the big question, so to speak.
I think I've given up on that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's like it's fucking pointless, you know. You might as well just get on with living. Don't worry about it.
If I'm not in pain, I'm happy.
Yeah. There you
Bills are being paid. I got food. Okay.
That's it. You don't need much more.
I was kind of agreeing with Gary there a little bit in some of the stuff he was saying, but I still say that he's the kind of person, like my grandfather, that you could say, I understand what you're talking about, but he just doesn't accept